Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Pretty good contact here as he hits it to deep right, and he's hit it out. Now that's a birthday present that George Springer just gave himself, and the Blue Jays have the early lead.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Howell slinging it to the ozone. Was it caught? Yes! McLaurin! Touchdown!
Well, a wonderful Wednesday afternoon. Happy Hump Day. Welcome to the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440 on your AM dial. Of course, online, sports1440.ca. You can also catch the show live on Oilers Nation YouTube. When you get there, hit the subscribe button because you'll have a chance to win some. We'll give away a set of tickets on Friday's show. So stay tuned for all the subscribers. If you've subscribed, you're automatically in. It is that easy. We have a loaded show for you today. It's another edition of Who Is It Wednesday. We have had Kelly Buckberger, Dave Nedwin as our first two Who Is It Wednesday guests. So we give you some hints in hour number 2, and then they will join us in studio at 3 o'clock sometimes. Maybe just on StreamYard online as well, depending on where they're at. It won't always be people residing in Edmonton, but there'll be a few. So today's guest is somebody who won a gold medal at the World Juniors, had an 8-year professional career, and scored a hat trick for a Canadian NHL team. Those are our first few hints. If you think you know who it is, you can text us, our Jiffy Lube inbox, 833-401-1440 is how you can get involved via the text line. You can always email us, Gregor at sports1440.ca, or Connor Halley, or just Connor, at sports1440.ca. Also on the show today, Buster Olney will join us. Jay's a big win last night. George Springer led it off with a solo shot to start the game. And Kikuchi, despite only sleeping 11 hours. Did you see that after the game? I had to chuckle, man. I'm like, the guy's got kids, and he sleeps from 11 p.m. supposedly until 1 p.m. No, I'm not joking. You didn't hear that wrong. 13 hours. How many grown adults sleep 13 hours? Very few teenagers who need sleep as their brain's developing can crush out 13 hours like that. I'm sorry, but I'm questioning that. He must be one of the greatest sleepers of all time. But like, who sleeps from 11 p.m. till 1 p.m., man? Get involved. So are you telling me that's why you cramped up, because you only had one day of 2? It doesn't make sense. You sleep 11 hours. Oh, geez, I didn't get 13. I had a cramp. Like baseball players. God, I love baseball, but some of their injuries and some of the other things just make you think, Charmin. That's what I think of. I'm sorry, but that's what I think about. So I don't know, Connor, you love your sleep. Can you sleep 13 hours consistently?
No. I mean, I probably max out about 8.5. I still strive for 8. If I can do that, I'm good to go. You know what? They might be a little bit softer, but I look at those contracts, Gregor, and I advise any young kid, get into baseball. Get into baseball. It's a good way to go.
But I don't think 13 hours sleep is the norm.
That seems like you're just setting yourself up for some tough days when you don't get that.
Well, clearly,
like that is tough.
You start cramping up, Cons. You only get 11, only 11 hours. My goodness, gosh! If I get 8 hours sleep, I'm pumped. Right now, it's brutal. I got to go to bed early because I can't sleep in past 5:30 right now. It's driving me up the wall. Like, I'm hating it. Although I do get a lot accomplished in that hour and a half when no one else is up in the house, but I don't like it. There's just something I'd rather wake up at 6:45. 5:30 regularly, 5:15. It's the worst, the absolute worst. So We'll talk to Buster Olney about that. Yaremchuk is by, of course, for his weekly Wednesday hit. We'll talk about Oilers training camp. They'll be on the ice tomorrow. Matthias Ekholm will not be on the ice, but Oilers fans, don't worry. The bearded wonder spoke today and said if this was the regular season, he would push through and play. But it's the start of training camp. You've got a few weeks until the regular season starts. He's in good shape. He's a veteran. It's like he's got a little bit of tightness in his hip flexor. Maybe it's strained. So either way, they're just not going to push it. So don't expect Ekholm on the ice this weekend. There was no timetable on when he'll return, but I would think they'll just give him, maybe a week off. Who knows how long it is. He'll obviously be getting treatment and everything else, but he was not. I saw him walk. He's walking fine. I know that walking doesn't mean you don't have an injury, but he really felt like it wasn't that serious. And the fact that he said if it's regular season, he'd be playing. So there you go. And that just means that Phil Broberg will get a few more reps on the left side defense to start camp. Other than that, there wasn't any real big stories today out of camp. Jack Campbell, hey, if you're a big believer in the power of the flow, he's growing his hair out a little bit longer. Stuart Skinner's mustache, pretty much status quo. It's rather large. They spoke. Evander Kane says he feels good. The sensitivity in his wrist as far as coming back fully, right? The nerves and everything, he says it's got a little tingly, a little numb at times, but that takes upwards of 2 years, he was told. So, but as far as range of motion and everything else, he feels good. Of course, you remember last year he had that gruesome injury in Tampa Bay. Then when he came back, he played a few games, then he broke multiple ribs and was out again. So he's just hoping to have a much better season health-wise in Edmonton. Also today, part one of a series, I talked about it yesterday on the show, about the Oilers and their team defense and goaltending. Because, there's lots of people that said, the Oilers system, the system's the problem. And I was like, I don't think so. So I dug into a lot of the numbers. I looked at the top 20 teams, the 16 that were in the playoffs, and then the other 4 that were close: Calgary, Nashville, Pittsburgh, Buffalo. Teams that missed the playoffs by 1 win. Like Calgary. Did you know? I crunched up Calgary's numbers. Man, if you're a Flame fan, you should be pretty confident that your team can bounce back. First of all, they had 17 overtime losses, and they missed the playoffs by 2 points. Just win 2 of those, and you're probably in. All right, and Jacob Markstrom. Look at Jacob Markstrom's numbers. They weren't very good. And the thing is, here's some stats on why I don't think the Oilers defensively are that bad, courtesy of Clear Sight Analytics. The Oilers, when it came to high danger 5-on-5 chances against, guess where the Oilers ranked? In the West, 3rd, behind LA and Dallas. In the NHL, 4th. Only Carolina was better in the East than the Oilers. So those are expected goals against 5-on-5. Clear Sight Analytics takes video. They track a lot of different things to come up with that number. And that number historically is a really good indicator of who makes the playoffs. And it's true. If you looked at all the playoff teams, they were there. Now, Buffalo, if you're a Sabres fan, you'll look at this number and say, that's where they have to improve. 5-on-5, they gave up a lot, did the Buffalo Sabres. If they tighten up defensively, I don't care who your goaltender is, when you're giving up that many chances, only Anaheim gave up more, it's hard. I don't care who your goalie is. It's difficult to win. So if the Sabres, and they missed the playoffs by 1 point. Actually, didn't they have a tiebreaker loss? I think they had 91 points. So, yeah, but basically we can say they missed by 1 point. They don't have to be top 10. Heck, if they're top 16, that's a massive improvement. But you look at the Calgary Flames. The Flames were 8th in the NHL in high danger chances against. They didn't give up a lot. And Jacob Markstrom was brutal with an 888. Let's just say Markstrom had just had a 901. Not stellar, not terrible. That'd be 14 fewer goals. You don't think the Flames might have won some of those games that they lost in overtime? They would have won them in regulation. Even just 3. Just say 3. So don't even say 14 goals against. Just pick 5 for Markstrom. And they're probably in. They had 93 points. That's why I think Calgary's going to be a playoff team this year. When you look at that number specifically, I can't fathom Markstrom being as bad as he was, and I can't fathom Jack Campbell being as bad as he was. Because Jack Campbell, he had an .888 save percentage. Here's his numbers the previous 4 years. 928, 904, 921, 914. He had an average save percentage of 916. And that's over a 4-year period, 916. And then he fell off a cliff in Edmonton at 888. New city, maybe put too much pressure on himself, changed all his gear during the year. Honestly, I think one of the easy bets for me is that Jack Campbell rebounds and has a decent year. I'm not saying he's going to be 916 again because you got to remember, scoring's up now. So let's just say Jack Campbell's a 905. If he's just a 905, 908, you know where that ranks him amongst goalies last year where offense was up? That would put him 16th to 20th. If he slots in there, you're doing cartwheels because Stuart Skinner was 14th. I don't see any reason why Skinner has a massive fall off, but again, it's goaltending. I just outlined Jacob Markstrom. Jacob Markstrom went from a 920 save percentage to an 880 or 888, right? That's a pretty big drop off from one year to the next. And that's a good goalie. So I don't know where the goalie will be this year. It's difficult to always project. There's it's one of the hardest positions to accurately project across the league. There's a few guys that you can say, hey, I think I'm confident with this guy. Sorokin, Shesterkin, Vasilevsky, right? Probably put UC Saros in that category. Connor Hellebuyck, for instance. So I would do it for sure. So we'll see where it goes. But when I look at the Oilers, a few reasons why I think, especially if your players are more focused on wanting to be better defensively, but they actually didn't give up a lot last year, courtesy of Clear Sight Analytics. Right. 4th best high danger chances against 5-on-5. It's pretty good. That's actually quite good. LA was the best, and LA had awful goaltending too. So you'd think LA should still be pretty good. Hey, boys, I'd happily wake up at 5:15. I got the wake up at 3 a.m. going right now. It's not good, Jocelyn. Hey, Jocelyn, I get that. It's terrible. I had that for a bit, but I was able to at least now I stretch it out to 5:30. I've got a few little things that I try to do, counting, just to relax, take your mind off things. But yeah, it becomes more of a mental battle. You're just like, are you joking right now? You can get frustrated. So there's been a few times I'll get on the Peloton, go do that. It's quiet. It's not going to make any noise. Can't really lift weights at 4 a.m. because let's be honest here, I'm not the quietest weightlifter, right? Always try to strain something too much. Boom, drop it. So can't really do that.
It's the witching hour, Gregor. 3 a.m. That's the witching hour.
It is true. Yeah. But you know what? In summertime, like 5:30, the dog was loving it because we're out walking around and it's all sunny out. There's no one else out there. So the dog liked it. I could let him go in the big dog park because there's like she's a small little dog and she's rather timid. So I don't put her in where the big dogs roam because she get rocked. But when the big dogs aren't out there, it's like she's hit the jackpot. She's wheeling around, all sorts of smells, sniffing all over the place. It's always great. Hey, Gregor, some 420 always helps. Yeah, you know what? Hey, maybe it does for you, but yeah, that's not mine. I don't have interest in that. So you won't, I'll look at other things, magnesium and some other stuff like that. Yeah. And you know what? It'll come and go. I got out of it for a while, but now it's back. So I'll have to figure it out. So I do find when I get back to a more working out schedule, I do sleep a little bit better. So hopefully I have to bump that up a little bit, I would think. So see how it goes. Also on the program today, Ian Furness will join us. We continue our Pacific Division preview. We'll stop in Seattle and the Kraken. Can they get better goaltending? Because they did not have great goaltending either. Also, speckled by Charlie Huddy. If you missed it today, Charlie Huddy, Doug Waite are going to be the inductees to the Oilers Hall of Fame. It will happen on Thursday, October 26th, when they take on the New York Rangers. Pretty big moment for Huddy and Doug Waite. Charlie Huddy, of course, 5-time Stanley Cup champion. for the Edmonton Oilers was really good. I wouldn't say overshadowed because Paul Coffey was just elite, but Charlie Huddy was a really solid defender for a long time. Doug Weight, he led the Oilers in scoring for 7 out of 8 years. The only year he didn't is when he got injured. And he had, I think it was 37 points in 43 games, likely would have led them in scoring again that year. So Doug Weight, for Oiler fans of late 90s, early 2000s, and you kind of became an Oiler fan, that was your guy. Doug Weight was a dynamic player. All right, like over that time, I think he was a top 15 scorer in the NHL. He was consistently productive. He was competitive. He was very friendly in the community. I know lots of people talk about meeting Doug Weight out, and it was always nice. So there's lots of reasons him and his wife, Allison, did a lot in the community as well, which I think is important. So kudos to both of them. That will be a very special day for them and their family and their teammates. All right, I'm always curious to see which teammates will come in for those type of events. So I would expect Doug Weight, who was a captain, really popular player amongst his teammates. You'll probably see a few of them in town, especially because this year you've got the Hall of Fame game on the 26th and then the Outdoor Classic on the 29th. So you can make it kind of a 5-day event if you want for some players. Right? Usually you have something on the Wednesday beforehand, but then they'll have something that'll be kind of neat to, I'm sure Doug Weight, Connor McDavid, those type of guys, you're leading scorers. There's always a connection there. So kudos to Doug Weight for getting in the second year for the Hall of Fame for the Oilers. Hey, guys, the Kings seem like a deep, deep team, and I hate it from the burglar. I think they lost a lot, man. Like, look at what they gave up in that trade. They're deep down the middle, no question about it, right? Obviously, Dubois with Kopitar and Deneau, that's a really solid three-way center position. But their third line was really good against Edmonton. And, you've got Fiala in their top 6, Adrian Kempe, Victor Arvidsson, Trevor Moore and Blake Lizotte, I guess solid third-line guys. Right now, Quentin Byfield's the other one. Is this the year Quentin Byfield takes a step? As it does, yeah, the Kings could be pretty good. Their back end solid, but I think their back end with Doughty and Gavrikov and Anderson and Matt Roy. Then they got some young guys, right? And Brant Clark not ready to start the season. It sounds like for the LA Kings. So we'll see where that goes. And then, of course, the big question for them is going to be in goal. And they're also part of that three-way deal with they got a pick for Ivan Provorov. So they got $2 million dead cap space this year in Provorov and next season. Take a quick break. When we return, Buster Olney will join us on the Jason Gregor Show presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
Feel the electric atmosphere and celebrate every Edmonton Oilers home game this season inside Rogers Place. Time is running out. Come be a part of what looks to be a season to remember. Less than 275 season seats remain for the 23-24 Edmonton Oilers season. Hurry to edmontonoilers.com/season seats to get yours before they're gone. Don't miss any historic moments from this incredible lineup. Get your season seats today at edmontonoilers.com/season seats.
Our cars are our lifeline. Every now and then.
It's the low.
Mom's MPV, Dad's 1500, or even Grandpa's old.
It's the lowdown.
All makes and models are welcome. Trust Cochran's Automotive.
On Sports 1440.
We're in our stores, providing everything you need to cheer them on in your home. The Brick, supporting Edmonton sports teams and fans since 1971. Saving you more.
Room 97.3, Sunday Soundtracks.
I love you, man. So what do you guys do for like 7 straight hours?
Whatever. I mean, like, we'll just hang out, you know. Sometimes we jam a little bit.
You play an instrument?
Yeah. Can't believe I've never told you. I play bass.
Really?
Oh, yeah. Sid and I have gotten pretty good at a couple of Rush songs.
What do you mean, like fast-paced rock?
No, like Rush. Like the band Rush.
I don't know them.
The Holy Triumvirate. Wait, you don't know Rush?
No.
You don't know Rush, the band?
Mm-mm.
All right, I'm going to hit you up with a little iTunes Action.
224. Jason Gregor, Connor Halley with you on a cloudy Wednesday. Happy hump day as you get through the week. Remember, for Oiler fans, if you're interested, you can watch training camp on Saturday. I think the doors, they're on ice from 10 till 1, a few sessions. And I think the doors open at 10 or 10:30. I'll double check on the opening time. But if you want to plan, you can, of course, bring the family, the kids. If you want to see some of the Oilers, they'll be in 2 different sessions. They'll be on ice at 10. And then the scrimmage is at 11 o'clock. So that's probably maybe what you're most interested in wanting to watch. I can tell you some of the other drills at times aren't that riveting. However, for somebody who's never been there, it's probably pretty exciting. I always remember that for young kids. They just like to see the players up front, up close and personal. It's pretty cool. So that is happening this Saturday, and I'm pretty sure it's the only time during the training camp that it is open to the public. So you might want to take advantage of it. Well, you can. Let's get to the MLB report, brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling, home of the no payments, no interest for 1 year on your furnace. Do not be cold this winter. Stay hot with Legacy Heating and Cooling. And we're always happy to have them on. Heck, we could talk baseball. We could talk farming, of course. A good friend of the show, one of the best analysts in the game from ESPN, Buster Olney, joins us. Buster, welcome back to the show, man. How you doing?
I'm doing great, thanks. And we can talk hockey experience. I would, you were talking about being up close and personal with players. I want to say it was about 4 years ago when I went online knowing that I was going to make a trip down to Nashville and taking my 15-year-old son. And I got tickets close to what I thought was close to the bench of the Nashville the Predators, and it turned out it was right behind their bench, and it was incredible. And the players could not have been nicer. The coaching staff, one of their assistant coaches, gave my son a puck. Players are high-fiving him as they walked out. It was awesome, and so I wouldn't be shocked if that would be the experience of the folks there. Because in the very few times that I've done anything with NHL, those guys have been tremendous.
Yeah, well, it's such a thrill for kids. You get a puck, but more so you get a high five, and that brief interaction, it's something that lasts a lifetime. And so players who go out of their way to do that, it never gets old. It's a very smart thing to do. Getting hot at the right time in MLB matters. Buster. And, last week at this time, Jays fans like, oh my goodness, they're blowing it. The season's going to end. And then, they get a sweep, and then the Texas and Seattle get swept. And, the Jays have another convincing win last night over the New York Yankees. When you look at the remaining schedule, and then you look at the teams, which one of Seattle, Texas, and Toronto do you think ends up missing, and why?
Well, and you could throw Houston in that mix. And I would say, because I went down the same trajectory that you did, where they get blown out by the Rangers. You're like, that's it. Jays are done. They're finished. And then they have a great weekend. And as we sit here today, we began the day, the Jays were ahead of all the teams in the American League West, which just makes no sense given what we saw last week. So I could sit here and try to pretend to make sense of it, but I'm not even going to bother. Because I just think that when you have in the National League wild card race or American League wild card race, you basically have a battle of a lot of mediocre and inconsistent teams. The manager of one of the teams and I were texting the other day, and I said, how you holding up? And he said, I've never seen Jekyll and Hyde like this. And that's exact. It's amazing the swings with this. The Cubs have had it, the Diamondbacks have had it, the Jays have had it. And it's a lot of fun to watch, and I'm sure for the for the teams that's going to be left out, it'd be excruciating. I would say, among all the American League teams that are in this race, I mean, it would be a stunner for me if the Astros somehow were the team left out once we get into the postseason. But they're at risk of having that happen.
Yeah, they've really kind of stubbed their toe here lately. When you look at the Blue Jays, like Vladdy Guerrero, he's not having an awful season.
No.
But he's just having a below his standards. And, he had 3 home runs consecutive games. Then he went 0 for 5 last night. But, it's not, okay, maybe he's coming out of it. I've seen people analyzing his swing and, maybe he's just a little bit ahead of it and stuff. Like, obviously the bar is high for a player like that. But, guys you talk to, what do you see as maybe lacking this year for Vladdy?
They're perplexed by the inconsistency because he is viewed as, one of the savants, having been around the sport his whole life, clearly having an understanding of the pitching. He has been an absolute puzzle. And so, I've asked that question of folks with the Yankees. I've asked it of folks with the Red Sox. What are you seeing in him? I get a lot of shrugs. Like, they think he should be better.
Yeah.
They think he should be more consistent. And it just, maybe that's where you leave it. Like, he's still a young player who is maybe in need of having, the motor going at the same level every single day. The other day I saw him make a, perplexing base running mistake.
Yeah.
I think there's some of that, not only with him, but also with that team. I know that there are players on that team who feel like, boy, there just needs to be a greater sense of accountability. And I think the Alek Manoah situation is a great example of that, where I understand what the Blue Jays are trying to do. They got a talented pitcher who was sent to the minor leagues. They believe in his talent. They probably don't want to be at odds with him. But, just talking with folks with other organizations, they're like, if you send a player to the minor leagues and he essentially refuses to go down and pitch, like, that's grounds for discipline. And if you don't do it, then the risk you run is sort of reinforcing this idea is that that the inmates are running the asylum a little bit, and that's not great for an organization that probably does need a higher level of accountability.
Buster Olney joins us breaking down MLB. Of course, arguably, Buster, we're on the cusp of the biggest free agent in MLB history in Shohei Ohtani. It doesn't look like, unless there's some miracle turnaround here, it doesn't look like he's re-signing in Anaheim. When you consider now, he had the surgery, he's on record as saying he's not going to pitch next year, right? Which is kind of disappointing. He's going to DH. How much do you think that impacts the money that he could earn in free agency? And because he's only going to be a DH for 1 year, do you see him signing a shorter term deal because he'd much rather be able to sign when he's the pitcher and the hitter?
So I do think it's going to have an impact on some teams and what they bid on him, because the risk is enormous. They would essentially, if you think about what Aaron Judge got last year, he's a Gold Glove right fielder, guy coming off one of the best seasons we've ever seen, and he got $360 million. So maybe that's and then I base this on conversations I've had with general managers. Maybe Judge's contract puts you in the range of what he would be paid for his work as a hitter. Well, then how do you put a number on what he would get as a pitcher? It's really difficult to do that because you just don't know, is he going to have a setback from this elbow procedure? Will he break down again? Are there going to be some other issues that pop up? At some point, is it going to be better for him to be a reliever than a starter? And so I do think there's some teams, and the Dodgers come top of mind for me because they're an organization that has done so well because they are essentially averse to risk. I could see some teams saying, no, we're not going that far. But all it takes, as you know, is one team.
Yeah.
And on top of that, it may be that Ohtani, for him, it doesn't really matter. I think he's made it clear in his actions that money is not the be-all, end-all for him. And so maybe he has it in mind that he does want to play for the Dodgers. And if the Dodgers, don't offer as much as, say, the Angels or the Giants, and I'm just speculating here, the Mariners, maybe he wants to go play for them. Maybe he wants to go play for the Mariners. I don't know. I had one GM say to me 2 months ago, look, if anybody is predicting that they are saying that they know what Shohei Ohtani is thinking, they're full of crap. And I think that's right. I think we're going to find out in free agency, and I think it's going to be resolved pretty quickly because he's going to get big offers from all over the place, and he's going to pick the place where he's most comfortable to stay in the next 8 to 10 years. And to your point about a short-term deal, I think what you can do is build an out clause for him in that contract that he's going to sign, say, after 2 years. So if he comes back and he's a monster pitcher,
Right.
he can go out and have another bite at the apple,
Okay.
test the market again, and get paid what he deserves as a hitter and a pitcher.
Yeah, that makes sense, right? I could see, the out clause in there gives him time to come back from pitching because he's such a unique talent. And usually in sports and in life, it's kind of a copycat. And there's been guys before, we had some two-sport athletes, Bo Jackson, Deion Sanders, et cetera. There's not a lot of that. But when you look at what Shohei Ohtani's done, Buster, it's really difficult to do. So I don't think you can just have guys magically do it. But do you think this will, in 5-10 years, are we going to see more players capable of being this dominant of a hitter and a pitcher, or is he just a massive unicorn?
So I think that you could look at it in two ways. I think in some respects, all of the bumps in the road for Ohtani, and the last 3 years have been so much fun to watch, but how many times have we heard about him being hurt? He needed Tommy John surgery. He was out. Complications within the Angels organization about a 6-man rotation, et cetera, et cetera. My instinct is that a lot of the teams will look at the injuries. They'll look at, what an outlier he is as an athlete and almost be discouraged from considering going with two-way players. But let's face it, Ohtani is the most watched player in baseball now. I think at the amateur level, he's going to inspire a lot of players who want to do that. And what was great about Ohtani when he came over here is that he had the leverage because he is such a unicorn to be able to tell the Angels, and he can do this with his next employer, look, I'm sorry, but this is something that I want to do. And maybe more players will do that in 4 or 5, 6 years because they've been inspired by Ohtani.
Yeah, it's magical to see. No question about it. The Atlanta Braves, how much of a clear favorite are they in your eyes?
Well, I think on paper, yeah. If you had to bet the family farm on a team, they're the team to bet on because their offense top to bottom is ridiculous. They've got excellent 1-2-3 in their rotation in Strider and Charlie Morton and Max Fried, but they also have vulnerabilities. There's no question about it. With their bullpen, the back end of their rotation in a short series, and we saw it last year when they stormed past the Mets, won the National League East, 101 victories, and then they got knocked out in the playoffs immediately against the Phillies because their starting pitching was kind of fragmented. So I think they'll go into the playoffs as a clear favorite. But if you told me the Phillies would beat them, that wouldn't shock me. If you told me the Brewers, who've been pitching out of their minds for the last month and a half, were to beat them, that wouldn't shock me. It would surprise me a little bit with the Dodgers because their pitching is so beaten up. And it wouldn't surprise me if the Astros come through and wind up winning. And I'll tell you why. They remind me a lot of those Yankee teams, I covered back in 98 to 2001, where I feel like the regular seasons have gotten tiresome for this group of Astros players because they push the rock up the hill year after year after year after year. I think once the postseason begins, just as it was with those Yankee teams, you're going to see a better brand of Astros baseball because of their postseason experience.
Buster Olney, our guest, breaking down all things Major League Baseball. So it's fair to say who knows who's going to make it or not make it in the AL. What about in the NL? You got the Cubbies in Miami, even Cincinnati, Arizona. Do you see anybody that you like better of the two out of those four to make it?
Well, I could go recency bias because we just saw the Diamondbacks on Sunday Night Baseball, and they swept the Cubs. They played with a lot of energy in that series, and maybe it's not surprising because they're a young team, and maybe it's not surprising because last Friday, Torey Lovullo, their manager, asked his former teammate Dustin Pedroia, the Red Sox second baseman who's now retired, to go into the clubhouse and fire up his players who just had a bad series in New York, and Dustin got him going. And he was like, don't tell me you're tired. Like, it's the end of the year. You got 2 weeks to go. You're in a playoff race. This is fun. And don't tell me you're young. And apparently, from talking with the Diamondbacks players, you really got their attention, and they seem to have responded. I also think the Cubs, among the 5 teams we're talking about in the behind the Phillies in the National Wild Card race, I do think the Cubs are the best team. Their bullpen is on fumes, and they just lost Michael Fulmer the other day back on the injured list. But those would be my 2 guesses as to who comes out of the National League.
Buster, always great to have you on the show. Enjoy the stretch run. And then in a few weeks, we're talking playoffs with a new format, best of 3s. I love it. Looking forward to it.
I can't wait. Thanks, man.
That is Buster.
Join
us, Buster. Welcome back to the show, man. How you doing? One of the best baseball.
I'm doing great, thanks. And we can
Also
talk hockey experience.
And big hockey fan.
You were talking about.
I love talking hockey, so it's great as well. And it is true. Those small little interactions, players with kids. I tell players that all the time. 5 seconds of your day will make such an impact for someone. Right? Smile at a kid, throw him a puck, just give him a high five, acknowledge them. Oh, man. And those kids, they don't forget it. That's how a lot of players become someone's favorite player. And it doesn't matter how good they are. They don't really care about it. They're just like, wow, he treated me really well. He's a good person. Super important. When we come back, Tyler Yaremchuk will join us. We'll talk Oilers training camp. We'll also hear later on today Ekholm and Jack Campbell, some comments from Jack Campbell that we will get to, and more on the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
How exciting is it to have sports talk
Portions of this hour brought to you by Jaffa Machinery. Did you know that Jaffa offers in-house and on-site service? Rain or shine, Jaffa Service Department is there for you. Get a quote now at jaffamachinery.com.
Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
I said was true, that you'll see.
World Juniors gold medal. Had an 8-year pro career. Scored a hat trick for an NHL franchise. Also attended Western University. Was part of the Maple Leafs organization 2 different times. All right. So we've added a few more. See if you can guess. 833-401-1440 if you want to try to figure out who it is for Wednesday. They'll be joining us at 3 o'clock today, which will be nice. Always look forward to I look forward to guests all the time, but definitely look forward to our Wednesday one. Let's get to the oil report now, brought to you by Volvo of Edmonton. They are the #1 dealership of all Volvos in Canada. Why? They got great vehicles. Yeah, they all do. But they have better service. It's the service that separates them apart. Trust me. Call Jordy or Mike. Go in to see Volvo, and you won't regret it. VolvoEdmonton.com as we welcome in Tyler Yaremchuk to the program. Of course, Oilers will officially be on the ice tomorrow. Matthias Ekholm won't be there. He's got a little bit of tightness in his hip flexor. He says it's nothing to worry about. If it was regular season, he would play through it. But it's preseason. Well, I guess technically it's training camp and then preseason. So there's no reason to rush it. But I will say, Tyler, and I wrote this and I said, I hate to be right, but the Oilers' top 5 defensemen missed a grand total of 2 games last year. You know that some little injuries are going to creep up at some point. And I think with Desharnais and Broberg, the Oilers should be able to handle it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the nice part about having those 7 reliable D-men like they had last year. You're right. They got lucky last year. No team goes through, or very few teams go through the entire season with that kind of injury luck. You can add on the fact that McDavid and Draisaitl, McDavid played all 82 games last year. That's a big, big advantage. That's never a guarantee. But when it comes to the Ekholm thing, Greg's, isn't there a chance that things like this are sometimes like a blessing in disguise? Like giving Philip Broberg a ton of minutes now in the preseason, more responsibility. Like maybe it's something that we look back on in 2 months and we're like, man, the preseason and all those added minutes were great for Broberg.
Oh, yeah. I don't see it as a negative at all, especially when Ekholm says that, if it's regular season, I'd play through it. Mm-hmm. So you know what? You give him a little bit of extra time to figure out and make sure that he's 100% healthy, because obviously the regular season for this group is what matters. And, I'm interested after listening to Stuart Skinner and Jack Campbell today. They come in very 2 different things. I think Stuart Skinner is now in his 2nd season. He wants to prove that, hey, guess what? Last year, I don't want a sophomore jinx. I feel like I'm more comfortable as a goaltender. And Jack Campbell, of course, wants to bounce back, because if you look at the last 5 years of his career, the first 4, he had a .916 save percentage. Last year was .888. Last year was really a significant outlier for Campbell, and he believes that he'll be able to get back to the level he was. Do you?
Yeah, I do. I have a series that's been going up over the last 8 days at Oilers Nation, the 10 biggest storylines I'm watching heading into next year. And today's was actually about Jack Campbell and just how, the Oilers were 2-3 points away from winning the Western Conference in the regular season last year. And they had a goalie who played 36 games. And in the bulk of those games, or in close to 50% of those games, he was giving up 4 or more goals, Gregor. Like in today's NHL, you're not winning a ton with goaltending like that. But I'm optimistic he can bounce back because, like you said, his career numbers, even with that poor season last year, is he not still like a .910 save percentage goalie? Like Jack Campbell, in all honesty, should not be as bad as he was in the early parts of the year. That really shouldn't happen again this year. If it does, it's a whole different conversation. It's a way bigger problem than it was 12 months ago, and maybe patience starts to run out. But I think Oilers fans should be very optimistic that Campbell's going to give them maybe not 916 goaltending, but like, what do you set the bar at? 905? Is that a good range?
If he's 905, that would put him in the top 20. That would put him 20th last season, right? 905 now. There's more goals, right? Like if Jack Campbell's top 20 in save percentage, you'd be pretty happy, because Stuart Skinner was there last year too. So if they're both in it, guys who started 30 plus games, you'd be pretty happy.
Yeah, that's fair. And I mean, maybe there should be an expectation that, not that Skinner's going to have a sophomore slump, but it was a surprise. I know the All-Star nod is weird because so many goalies get named to the All-Star game and the way they do it with the 4 divisions, but maybe there should be a bit of an expectation as well, or maybe we should be tempering expectations on Stuart Skinner. Like, there's no guarantee he's an All-Star caliber goalie again, right? Like, he might slide down 5-10 save percentage points.
Yeah, and I think, and not to discount anything he did, but if you look at the goaltending across the board in the Pacific Division, right, like he was in the right division to be the All-Star goaltender. I'll just say that, right? Like there was lots of Markstrom, Demko, Seattle had terrible goaltending, LA had terrible goaltending, San Jose, Anaheim, like it was really him in Vegas, right? And Thompson was hurt, and so they didn't have anybody. So it's good on Stuart Skinner, but if you looked at him overall, I don't look at Stuart Skinner necessarily as an all-star to say, wow, if he's not an all-star this year, that means it's a bad year. I just look at Stuart Skinner. If he comes close to the consistency he had, because I thought he was pretty consistent overall last year. If he hovers around 914, 912, whatever, give or take a few, I would think that's a really good season, because as we've seen from established goalies, staying consistent year to year as a goalie is hard.
Yeah, I wrote a piece last year breaking Skinner's games into kind of 8 to 10 segments, 8 to 10 game segments throughout the year. And I think there was only one where you looked at it and went like, ooh, there was like a stretch where he wasn't good. And it was right after the All-Star break. He had just had a kid. Like you kind of excuse a guy for that. So he was remarkably consistent last year, which made it all the more impressive. But the other side of it this year, I think if anyone's expecting Stuart Skinner to play 55 games, they should check themselves a little bit. Like, you need to keep it balanced because he ran out of gas in the playoffs.
He did say today he wasn't fatigued, though. That's what he said today. And you know what? I think sometimes maybe it's the mental focus and what have you. But I agree with you on the amount of games played. The only way Stuart Skinner's playing that many games is if there's an injury to Jack Campbell and they got to play him more, up to 55. Because I think ideally the right number would be anywhere between 41 to 48. I think that's ideally what they'd like it to stick around. Maybe they stretch it to 50. We'll see. Sam Gagner, who was expected to be one of the guys competing for those spots that are available on the fourth line, or spot, I guess depends how you look at it. He won't be. He's going to be in camp, but he's not going to be taking part in any of the preseason. You know what? He's not going to sign a contract. He'll go down to Bakersfield on his PTO a little bit later on and just kind of try to work things out. So that takes one person out of the competition. Is there, like, to me, it's Sutter. Like, that's the main guy I'm looking at. So I'll make it harder. If you take out Sutter, which of those other guys competing are you most intrigued to watch throughout the preseason?
Yeah, like Sutter's just such an unknown, right? Because he hasn't played in so long. And I know Holland had the line saying, like, hey, if you can be your 28-year-old self, you're exactly what we need. And it's like, well, he's not his 28-year-old self. He's 34-year-old Brandon Sutter. I'm really intrigued by Lane Peterson, though. I know in Vancouver he didn't play a lot of center, but he's a big body. And I feel like, we got the fan base, I should say, got a little enamored with the PTOs of Sutter and Gagner, the vibes of Sam Gagner and all that. With Peterson, like, they gave him a 2-year deal early in the summer. They clearly liked him enough to commit to him for a couple of years. I feel like maybe we're not talking about Lane Peterson enough as potentially being that guy. He brings some size, the scoring isn't exactly at a level that's, above average for a bottom six player, but he can probably get the job done. I think we're maybe overlooking Peterson.
Okay. If I'm not taking Sutter, then to me, it's Raphael Lavoie. He was clearly their best player in the minors last year. He bet on himself in the contract in the summertime, which I respect. I have no issue with the direction he went. He's like, hey, I'm going to make the NHL this year. And maybe it's not in Edmonton, and he probably feels like someone would claim him on waivers. So, you know what? I look for it. Well, he's definitely going to play either on Sunday at home or Monday in Winnipeg. I don't expect McDavid or Draisaitl, those guys, to play in that first game on Sunday. I think you'll save them for, the last few home games of the preseason, similar to last year. I think McDavid played 3 total games in the preseason last year, and I think you'll probably see something similar. And that means those guys battling for those roles, Tyler, are going to get a lot of action in the preseason.
Yeah, and actually, Kat, I wanted to float something your way. You mentioned Lavoie as the guy, and I do think that's something that obviously works against Peterson and Sutter, is like, you need to play so well that the organization's comfortable putting Rafflev on waivers, a guy they've invested a lot of time in. How big of a lock is Dylan Holloway to make this team? Like if Peterson or Sutter play really well and they go, okay, that's our 4C, that fills a clear need for us, and Rafflev plays good, do you maybe look at Holloway and go, what's 20 games in Bakersfield and wait till we run in injuries? Like, you won't lose him on waivers because he's waiver exempt. I wonder if maybe 100%. We aren't, again, overlooking that as a potential storyline. He might not start with the big club.
No, we talked about that earlier this week on the show. Exactly, because I agree with you. I think those are possibilities. You can't just say it's a lock that certain guys. I think he's got a really good chance, and I think Dylan Holloway would probably have to. The closest example I'll think of was when Caleb Jones came up and he played 17 games at the end of one season, and everyone's like, okay. And then he came into camp the next year and was absolutely overwhelmed. And he was he was like in the second round of cuts, and he was very disappointing in his performance. Like Holloway, I think would have to be really bad. And I don't expect it to be, but I think he would have to, for somehow really stub his toe not to be here on opening night, just because I think they like his size and his strength. At times, I think he's just like every young player, he'll learn that less is more at times. Definitely keep his head up a little bit when certain guys are on the ice, mainly the Anaheim Ducks defenders this year. So, you know what? It is interesting. And then obviously on the back end, you've got Broberg and you have Desharnais. Like, can Niemelainen make that decision remotely difficult, or do you think it's a foregone conclusion, bar an injury, who the 7 defensemen are?
I feel like it's a foregone conclusion. Like, at this point, do you really want to be, it's what, his 4 years since Philip Broberg was drafted and picked in the top 10 of his draft? Do you really want to be sending that guy down again for more, in air quotes, seasoning when you just want to keep Marcus Niemelainen as your 7? I think there's more value in keeping Philip Broberg up with the big club. Would Niemelainen clear through waivers? Like, probably, right? Like, quality players get through that waiver wire every year at this time because teams are just so jammed up. So I don't know. I'd be really surprised if Niemelainen makes it a conversation, but it would be a good problem to have, I guess. Yeah, for sure. Ty, thanks for this, buddy. Have a good one. We will see you down at the rink. Thanks, Riggs. That is Tyler Yaremchuk from Oilers Nation. That was the Oil Report, brought to you by Volvo of Edmonton. When we come back, our big guest. And who is it Wednesday? Sean from Lethbridge figured it out. He just got the answer in. I'll tell you who it is after Connor Halley in a Sports 1440 update, brought to you by BIE Engineering, specializing in all your residential, commercial, and industrial structural engineering needs. Go to BIEENG.com.
Oilers defenseman Mattias Ekholm is dealing with a minor hip flexor injury and may take a few days before he gets going at training camp. The Oilers preseason will start Sunday, 4 o'clock, when they take on the Winnipeg Jets. The Jays in action once again, taking on the New York Yankees. First pitch set for just after 5 o'clock. The Jays currently sitting in second spot in the wild card race, 1 game ahead of the Rangers and the Mariners. Both of those teams in action today. The Mariners right now lead the Athletics 4-1 in the top of the 5th. And earlier on today, the Rangers beating up on the Red Sox 15-5. Other finals for you. Guardians falling to the Royals 6-2 as the Nationals over the White Sox 13-3. Twins beat the Reds 5-3. And in extras, the Braves fell to the Phillies 6-5. Later tonight, the Dodgers take on the Tigers. Cards host the Brewers. Cubbies up against the Pittsburgh Pirates. The Marlins host the Mets. And the Angels head to Tampa to take on the Rays. 1 game in the AJ this evening is Sherwood Park traveling to Lloyd to take on the Bobcats. That one gets going at 7. Coming up in hour 2 of the Jason Gregor Show, it's another edition of Who Is It?
Sports betting is now live at playalberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated gambling website. All the revenue from provincial gaming programs goes back into Alberta communities like yours. When you play in Alberta, it stays in Alberta. Learn more at playalberta.ca.
Hey, sports fans, we've got a clear choice for you. At Crystal Glass, we provide customers with the perfect glass for any job. From home to auto and even commercial, installation or repairs, we're your team. Call 310 Glass or visit crystalglass.ca. Crystal Glass.
McCafe now has cold brew beverages, and they're smooth. Made with 100% Arabica beans, steeped cold and slow for an irresistibly smooth taste. McCafe cold brew beverages, for a limited time only at participating McDonald's.
New season, new start, new beginnings. Hockey is back at Rogers Place with the Edmonton Oil Kings home opener.
This Saturday night, your Edmonton Oil Kings look to get the 2023-2024 season off to a hot start against their arch rivals, the Red Deer Rebels.
It's family fun that's second to none.
The puck drops at 7 p.m.
Oil Kings home opener this Saturday.
Great family entertainment at Rogers Place starts at just $20 a seat. Save on Dave game pricing now at oilkings.ca.
Actions speak louder than words. Japa Machinery Group puts your construction plan into action with XCMG construction machinery you need. Available for rental or sale. Learn more at japamachinery.com.
The full-service provider of heavy haul transportation and rigging at the highest level. Next Gen Transportation.
We're developing new and innovative ways to transport oversized and overweight equipment to remote and challenging locations.
Our Next Gen team leads with a wealth of experience and expertise. But most importantly, we put safety first, so everyone gets home safely.
We also take great pride in supporting our local community programs and teams. Good luck to everyone this season and in the year ahead.
Visit nextgentransportation.com.
A premier hockey solution with a clear path for long-term development is proud to be entering its 7th season of independent borderless hockey, featuring provincial and cross-province competition with showcase style, regular season gameplay, and a strong commitment to individual skill development. It's an attractive option for those seeking family life balance. The Hockey Super League offers opportunities for both male and female athletes, born between 2011 and 2016. Visit hockeysuperleague.com for more information.
At The Brick, we're not just proud of this city and its rich sports history. We're proud partners of it. The Brick started right here in Edmonton over 50 years ago. And when we're not cheering on the Oilers and Oil Kings live at the game, or the Edmonton Elks under the bright stadium lights, we're in our stores, providing everything you need to cheer them on in your home. The Brick, supporting Edmonton sports teams and fans since 1971, saving you more.
How low can they go? At Buy Low Foods, they can go way low. Stock up and save big when you buy more of select products. Only at Buy Low Foods.
Every Wendy's meal could use something a little crispy, dippy, and made with 100% all-white seasoned chicken. So next time, add a 6-piece of crispy chicken nuggets to your Wendy's order for just $3.49. You won't regret it. Taxes extra. Price and participation may vary.
Hey, Alberta drivers. New rules are in place to protect roadside workers. Now, when you see first responders, tow trucks, or highway maintenance vehicles with flashing lights on the side of the road, you must move over if it's safe to do so. If you can't move over, slow down to at least 60 kilometers an hour. Help protect Alberta's roadside workers. It's the law. Learn more at alberta.ca/roadworkersafety. A message from the Government of Alberta.
This is Sports 1440, a Stingray radio station broadcasting on Treaty 6 territory.
Download the free iHeartRadio app and listen to CKJR wherever you go.
Sports radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
We continue on. Happy Hump Day on Sports 1440 is the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca, our title sponsor, where 100% of the revenue stays right here in the province, and hit a big parlay yesterday. So Kid Sport, of course, this month we make a $20 wager every day, and all of the winnings, hopefully we have some, go towards Kid Sport. Big thanks to Frank yesterday as he put in one of our picks, and it hit. So see if we can continue that today. It is Wednesday at 3 o'clock, and that means it's time for Who Is It Wednesday, brought to you by Silent Ice Sports and Entertainment. They are an innovative market leader with properties across Western Canada, including the Seattle Thunderbirds, the Spruce Grove Saints, Silent Rides Charter Company, the Hockey Super League, and of course the Junior Prospects Hockey League. Check it out. It's Silent Ice. And we'd given some hints. We did, a few of you figured it out near the end on who our guest is today. He has won a gold medal at the World Junior Hockey Championships. He had an 8-year professional career. He scored a hat trick for a Canadian NHL team. He had 2 different stints with the Toronto Maple Leafs. And of course, now he is the new CEO of the Edmonton Oilers organization. We are welcomed in by Jeff Jackson. Jeff, thanks for coming in studio. How you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Hey man, I'm excellent. I got to think I'm probably not as excited as you. Like this is a new challenge for you, right? You've been in hockey as a player agent, as an assistant GM. Like you've done all different categories. Now you come into an organization that you obviously know very well because one of your biggest clients is Connor McDavid, or former clients, I guess, is Connor McDavid. Now I guess it's kind of a teammate again in a way. I guess how excited are you about this, and what made you want to make the switch to try a new challenge like this?
Yeah, I'm super excited. I don't think you get these opportunities to come in at a job at this level when the team is in such a good spot. You know, the team, Ken Holland has done an amazing job. Jay Woodcroft's done an amazing job over the last year and a half to get this team to be, you know, an upper echelon team. Great culture in the dressing room. All the players are, you know, sort of at that stage of their career where they're maturing and maturing not only individually but as a group. And I think that was one of the biggest things for me when the opportunity sort of arose, was that the team is really good, and that relationship that I had with Connor is very unique, that I could have this opportunity to come to this side of the table and, like you said, sort of be a teammate along with the rest of the managerial staff and coaches and players to try to, you know, compete for a cup every year for the next little bit.
So with who is it? We'd like to do a little bit of a history of the person. A lot of people maybe don't know. They obviously know that Jeff Jackson's the new CEO and was Connor McDavid's agent, but there's much more to Jeff Jackson than that. Of course, was a 2nd-round pick of the Toronto Maple Leafs, and then of course made your NHL debut with the Maple Leafs. Played parts of 8 pro seasons in the NHL and the American League. Take me back to kind of Jeff Jackson, the player. When you look back at your career, like were you pretty confident at 16 or 17? Like were you just a honed in kid on, man, this the NHL is where I'm going, or what were you type of player when you're 16, 17?
No, I think back in the 80s, early 80s, mid 80s, it was a lot different than now. Like the dream of playing in the NHL was really a dream, you know, like you didn't have all of these kind of like direct tracks to try to get to the NHL with elite AAA teams and summer teams and all of that sort of thing. And I grew up in a very small town, 2,600 people in Dresden, Ontario. But we did have an NHLer who had gone before me named Ken Houston. And so he was sort of like a hometown inspiration for me, that I said, you know, Ken was able to make it to the league. He came back every summer, would spend time with, you know, my family, encourage me. And it sort of gave me that hope that I could actually get there from a small town. So I just kept at it as I went through minor hockey and started junior. And, you know, once I got to the OHL, back then the draft was, the OHL draft was a year later. So you had 1 year and then you were in the NHL draft. And I was a 1st-round pick to Brantford. At that point, I was like, okay, I was a 1st-round pick in the OHL. Like maybe I got a chance here.
Okay.
And sort of that's when I thought it might be realistic to chase it.
Who was your first agent?
Bill Waters.
And being a player agent now, like what did you learn from Bill that made you want to become a player agent?
Well, back then, we got agents about a week before the NHL draft. Like it was, you were 18 already. You didn't have an agent really when you were in junior. You sort of like, as the NHL draft approached in June, you sort of scrambled, and there wasn't many agents. There was Gus Badali, who I think at the time was like Paul Coffey's agent, and at one point had represented Wayne and some other people. So he was well known. And then there was Bill Waters, there was Alan Eagleson, and a couple others. So it wasn't like now where there's thousands of agents and everybody's competing and you're recruiting 12 and 13-year-old kids.
Yeah. So
I loved Bill, and he had Rick Curran was working with Bill then, and he was a young guy in his 20s.
Okay.
Ricky's still in the business. I don't know how, 45 years now, probably close to that or a little bit more. And They did a great job taking care of us. So I said it didn't inspire me to be an agent, but I always look back and thought, I always felt that they had my back.
Now, I like to play a few fun games different times with different guests. I'm going to say a date, and I want to see if you remember it. Now, these are dates that kind of had an impact in your life at some point. October 11th, 1984.
First NHL game?
That's right. Against?
Montreal?
No, Minnesota North Stars.
Minnesota.
And then
See, I'm bad. That's bad.
your second game was 2 days later. As an Ontario kid, that was a home game at Maple Leaf Gardens against the Buffalo Sabres. Take me back to a young Jeff Jackson for his first home NHL game. And how many family members or friends were in the building?
Well, I know my family, my mom and dad and my brother and sister were there. It was super exciting. I mean, you don't really realize it when you're a kid, but in Maple Leaf Gardens, they would crank on these massive lights because the Hockey Night in Canada game. And those old buildings were more cavernous and they were dark. And I remember coming out for the warm up, and it was just like the lights were so bright, and the fans were hanging. The glass was low back then, right? So the fans hung over, and they're all talking to you. I was super cranked up. I can tell you that.
I could what a thrill though. Like I remember my first time at Maple Leaf Gardens, and I sat at the end of the rink, right above the net, and there was the seats were right there. Yeah. There was no mesh. I was like, oh my God, you got to be paying attention here. It's literally, you shoot one bad deflection, it's coming hitting you right in the chick.
Yeah. I mean, well, the mesh didn't come in for years and years later. I took one bad incident one time and then they put them in every rink. But back then, there was lots of deflected pucks going up, straight up behind the net.
Yeah. And it was literally the end of the rink, and the way the building was situated, it was right above. I couldn't believe it. I'm an idiot. And I sat there because I thought it was a great vantage point to watch.
They are great seats though. They were really good seats.
They are fantastic. Jeff Jackson, CEO of the Edmonton Oilers, joins us today on, who is it? Wednesday, December 28th, 1985.
What was it? December 28th?
Yeah, December 28th, 1985. I'll give you a hint. I'll say Rich Costello.
Oh, okay. First NHL goal.
He assisted on it.
Yes, he did.
So what kind of goal was it?
I was kind of a high slot, and the puck was in the corner, and Rich Costello grabbed it and sort of spun around, and I was just going to the net, and I had my stick on the ice, and it came to my stick, and I sort of one-timed it on the strong side, and I think it was Steve Weeks was the goalie, and it went in, and I was relieved because I'd played the year before as a junior age player, and I didn't have a point or no goals, at least in however 18 or 20 games or something like that.
Yeah.
And I was starting to wonder if I would ever score in the NHL. So it felt great to go in.
Oh man, the mind games, I would think, for a guy, because you scored your decent score in junior, and 17 games in the grand picture isn't that much, but when you're in it, it feels probably like 100.
Yeah. I was sort of gripping the stick a little tight, but it was nice.
Now we fast forward a few years, January 3rd, 1991.
January.
I'll give you a hint. I'll say Joe Sakic.
That's not the night I got a hat trick.
It is.
Oh, is it? Okay.
Yes. So here you are, and you played 10 games that year for the Nordiques. Your third game, you pot a hat trick, first NHL hat trick. And now it was a high scoring game against the Blues, but man, I don't care what league you're in. When you score a hat trick, it's pretty fun.
Yeah, it felt pretty good that year because I had played in Quebec for a few years, and they had sent me to the minors, and I got called back up, and like you said, it was third game, and I got the hat trick, and then we played I think the next night in Montreal, and I scored again. And then that was the year that I broke my forearm really badly. So I only played the 10 games.
Yeah.
I think I would have probably been fine and stayed the rest of the year, but then I had that injury and I missed the rest of the season. So it was a pretty short season for me, but it felt good. I know Brett Hall got 4 that night.
Yeah, him and Adam Oates was pretty good.
Yeah. They had a
4-pointer.
They had a good team. Yeah.
Now, I was looking at your career, and you were in Toronto for a bit. Then late in 1987, you went to New York. You played 9 games. You had 5 goals in 9 games for the Rangers. You didn't sign with them. So when you went there, were you claimed on waivers at that? Or was it a late season trade? When was the deadline?
I got traded to the Rangers at the deadline, around the deadline. It was a different time then for Mark Osborne. Mark Osborne came to Toronto, and then I played the rest of that year. And like you said, I had the good fortune. I played on a line with Marcel Dion and Kelly Kissio, who was playing right wing, and we just connected. We played well together. I went back to camp the next year. I think I had 6 goals in 6 preseason games playing on that same line. And I was so excited about the season. I thought, I can get this career going, getting a great opportunity with, obviously a Hall of Fame player. And then Phil Esposito came in. We were in preseason. We took the warm up, and we dressed 2 extra players, 1 extra forward, 1 extra D for warm up. And we're all going, okay, what's going on? So all of us are nervous because Phil made a million trades, right?
Yeah.
We came out after warm up. We're all sitting there. It's time to start getting our skates done up and go do the game. And the assistant coach comes in and says, Terry Karkner, Jax, go see Phil. We're like, oh. So we got traded to Quebec right before the game, after warm up.
For who?
For John O'Grodnick and David Shaw.
Wow. Yeah, you're right. Phil, he just traded. It was like it was hockey cards almost for him.
And the ironic thing is that at the end of the previous season, when I'd gone to the team and done very well, at the year-end party, he had his arms around me and George McPhee, and he said, I'll never trade you two guys. I love you two. I know I make a lot of trades. Well, he traded me that day, and he traded George to Winnipeg the same day.
The same.
So we saw each other at the hotel, and we're like, can you believe he traded us after what he said to us?
Now you must have seen Phil later on. Did you ever ask him about that?
Yeah.
What did he say?
I harassed him about it. He said I had to make the deal. Jax had to make the deal.
Jeff Jackson joins us. We're going to take a quick break. We'll come back, and I want to talk about a very unique transition. You go to law school, then you get you're working in sports law and entertainment. Then you, how would you get to the Toronto Maple Leafs? And then, of course, into the player agent business and much more when we return with Jeff Jackson, the new CEO of the Edmonton Oilers.
A full-service provider of heavy haul transportation and rigging at the highest level. Next Gen Transportation.
We're developing new and innovative ways to transport oversized and overweight equipment to remote and challenging locations.
Our Next Gen team leads with a wealth of experience and expertise. But most importantly, we put safety first, so everyone gets home safely.
We also take great pride in supporting our local community programs and teams. Good luck to everyone this season and in the year ahead.
Visit nextgentransportation.com.
You'll absolutely love the new and app-approved Booster Juice app. Download it today and start earning Berry points for app-amazing rewards. Apply your points for all of your Booster Juice favorites for free, from booster balls to smoothies.
Jeff, thanks for coming in.
Combo deals, even.
Setting a new industry standard, celebrating a legacy of excellence with Japa. Learn more at japamachinery.com.
Trevor is lonely. Yeah. So Trevor threw a big party and served salad. Nobody came. Mike is also lonely. Yeah, it sucks, man. So Mike threw a big party and served Will Hawk beef jerky.
Go Will Hawk! Go Will Hawk! Everybody came!
Will Hawk beef jerky, because you don't win friends with salad.
Will Hawk is the home of Alberta's best beef jerky.
In Leduc, Spruce Grove, and West Edmonton Mall.
PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated gambling website, features a variety of responsible gambling tools such as a time clock, deposit limits, and more. Remember, if you gamble, use your game sense. Visit GameSenseAB.ca to find out more.
Hey world, get ready to believe. At Oodle Noodle, we serve up world-class, worldwide flavors in our sweet, saucy, and fiery noodles. We believe in the power of nudes. We've got everything from saucy mac and cheese to sizzling pad thai to so many other unbelievable dishes sure to make you a noodle convert for life. You've got to taste them to believe it. Don't be a skeptic. The proof is in the noodles. Check us out at oodlenoodle.ca. Oodle Noodle, we believe in noodles.
Building or renovating, you want to work with someone who sees and understands your vision. BIE Engineering is a family-owned, experienced structural engineering consulting firm serving commercial and residential clients in Edmonton and surrounding area. Homeowner or large company, they'll work with you to help see your ideas through. BIE Engineering can help prevent problems, deliver solutions, and minimize your risk. BIE Engineering. Request a quote for your project today. Visit BIEENG.com.
At The Brick, we're not just proud of this city and its rich sports history. We're proud partners of it. The Brick started right here in Edmonton over 50 years ago. And when we're not cheering on the Oilers and Oil Kings live at the game, or the Edmonton Elks under the bright stadium lights, we're in our stores, providing everything you need to cheer them on in your home. The Brick, supporting Edmonton sports teams and fans since 1971, saving you more.
At Toyota, we build quality trucks with you in mind because everyone loves a friend with a truck, especially a Toyota, winner of the Canadian Black Book Award for Best Residual Value. So when that inevitable ring-a-ding-ding for help comes, you're there, rolling up in an award-winning truck because you're an award-worthy friend. It's time to lift with your legs. It's time to Toyota. Order a 2023 Tundra 4x4 Double Cab SR5 starting from $59,101. Price includes additional fees, taxes extra. Hybrid also available. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Prairie Toyota dealer today.
Weiss Johnson, whoa!
Hi, Dennis from Weiss Johnson. Can you believe that fall is just around the corner? With that in mind, we are offering free furnace upgrades from Daikin should you be looking to get a new furnace. This means getting a better model of furnace that provides you greater comfort at a lower price point. Plus, Daikin has the best warranty in the business. There's never a better time to get a new Daikin furnace from Weiss Johnson. We know how important a furnace is in winter in Edmonton, so don't procrastinate as this is a limited time offer. Visit wjheats.com today.
Portions of this hour brought to you by EWL. From LED lighting audits and retrofits to design, build, and distribution systems, EWL service can help give you the edge you need to impress your clients. EWEL.ca.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Let's go! We continue on Wednesday afternoon on Sports 1440. It's the Gregor Show presented by PlayAlberta.ca. Coming to you live from the EWEL studio, EWEL, for all your electrical needs. And a very special guest on Who Is It Wednesday, the CEO of the Edmonton Oilers was hired on August 3rd. So just been on the job for about 6 weeks. Excited for a training camp to get on the ice tomorrow. And then, of course, preseason action at home against the Winnipeg Jets on Sunday. And then, of course, the season opener, October 11th in Vancouver. And so, Jeff, we talked about your playing career. You finished playing, and then you end up going to law school, which was not like, that's something that late in your hockey career, I don't know, fell into it, but you had an offer that all of a sudden piqued your interest.
Yeah, when I was just finishing up my career, I was a team player rep for the Nordiques, and we would attend NHLPA and owner meetings, and we would have a set of meetings, 3 or 4 times a year. And Bob Goodenow was the new executive director at the time. He was a lawyer. He was trying to sort of get players to be more educated and empowered than they had been previously. So he formed a law committee, asked for some volunteers. I volunteered for it. And I found it very interesting. We would look at different issues. He would walk us through it all. They had, in a couple in-house lawyers, and it just sort of piqued my interest. So I thought to and at that point in my career, Mike Gillis had become my agent.
Oh, okay.
And Mike had been a former player who had a bad injury and then had gone back to law school and was practicing law. And him and I talked a lot about it, and he encouraged me to do it. And so as I transitioned out of hockey, he was very helpful, actually, and sort of giving me a little bit of guidance through his experience. And, at the end of the day, he was very helpful for me because I applied to law school as a mature student or a life experience student. I didn't do an undergrad.
Okay.
I did 2.5 undergrad credits, and then I got into law school as a mature student. And so it was a tough slog at the beginning, but, you figure it out pretty quick. You got to work. Much like when you're a player, you had to work on a team with different people to study. But But that's how I ended up in law school. A lot of it was with Mike Gillis discussions and things like that.
And your original plan when you went to school was you're like, hey, I'm a former player with a law degree that probably can get me a job somewhere. But then you kind of fell in love with actually practicing law and stayed in it for 8 years.
Yeah, I joined a firm in Toronto, Heenan Blakey, which was was a smaller boutique firm at the time. During my time there, it grew to be one of the bigger national firms. But I practiced corporate and entertainment law. I had a great group of colleagues, David Steinberg, Ken Dollywall, Jim Russell. All these guys are still really good friends of mine. And I loved working there. And I did it for 8 years, and I didn't really anticipate leaving the law practice. And then sort of had an opportunity when John Ferguson called. He was the GM of the Leafs at the time, asking me if I would, have coffee and talk about coming to work for him. And that's sort of where that job started.
Well, that got you back into the NHL, right? And then you moved up and eventually were the assistant GM and then the GM of the Marlies for a few seasons. But your original were you excited to get back in the NHL? Or was there any at all trepidation just because now, you're going into management and you'd been in law and kind of out of the game for a decade?
Yeah, it was a difficult decision because having been a player and knowing how it's so precarious, it's very similar in the management side of things, coaching and management. Like it's all team success. And, if you're the assistant GM and the GM gets fired, you might be on your way out too. It doesn't matter how good a job you've done or haven't done. So, it was a difficult decision. I had coffee with John Ferguson probably 10 times. Like it was one of those things where we kept talking about it. And finally I just decided I was going to dip my toe back into it and join the team. And it was exciting. It was nice to be back in hockey. I knew kind of going in with my eyes wide open that it might be something that wasn't as stable as the law firm. But I also had confidence in myself that if it didn't work out, I could always go back to a law firm.
Yeah, and that's fair. Jeff Jackson joined us. So you were hired in June of 2006. You were there. You're the director of hockey administration. Then the next year, you get a new title, assistant GM, director of hockey operations. Then the next year, you're the GM of the Marlies. So you kept moving up. And then in March of 2010, there'd been another because you talked about it earlier, how sometimes when a new GM comes in, it means you might not be staying. But Cliff Fletcher came in during your tenure. You stayed. Then Brian Burke was hired, and I think you left in March or April of that year. What was the reason? What was your focal point at that point in 2010 to leave?
Well, like you said, I started with Fergie and then I worked for Cliff, which was great because I got a lot of experience really quickly working for Cliff because he had sort of been out of the game as a GM for a while and he had all kinds of relationships, but I was sort of doing a lot of the cap management, all the contracts, all the staff contracts, the plane contract, pretty much everything. And so it was baptism by fire. So I learned a lot and it was great. And then Berkey came in. I forget when he got hired. I think it was February or March. And it was all good with Berkey. But he brought Dave Nonis in and then he brought Dave Poulin in. And I sort of was getting pushed down the depth chart, if you want to call it that, on the management side. Yeah. And at one point, Brian and I had a discussion and he said, like, these guys are going to be my guys. I had a contract. He said, you can stay and work with us or you can leave. Sort of up to you. I'll help you, whatever. It was one of those ones where I wouldn't say he pushed me out, but he had other guys who were ahead of me and I saw the writing on the wall and I left. I guess it was during the Olympics 2010 is when I kind of stopped working for the Leafs.
So then how did you make the transition to player agent? How'd that go?
Well, everybody teases me about this, but I took about a year and a bit off of hockey and law and I just did some landscaping work.
Okay.
Yeah, I got outside and I got kind of cleared my head sort of thing. Did a couple big projects. I love art design and all that stuff. So I did a couple jobs and it was great. And then I got a call from Dave Gagner, who's a longtime friend, saying that Sam was thinking about changing agents and would I help him? And I thought about it. I said, sure, I just spent 5 years 4.5 years dealing with all the agents in the business when I was AGM of the Leafs. I sort of know how guys operate. I've got the knowledge. I think I can do that. And so I naively thought I was going to start my own agency and be able to build it all up. But I did help Sam, and then I recruited a couple other players. And then I saw very quickly, like when you're competing against Newport and Octagon and CAA and those types of agencies, like you can't do it on your own. It doesn't matter what your resume is. And fortuitously for me, Bobby Orr and Rick Kern came along, and Rick had been my agent, and we had a good relationship. And they sort of had a need. And ironically, I was kind of at the finish line to do a deal with Acme, which was Bill Zito's agency. I was going to run the Canadian operations for Acme.
Okay.
I get the call from Bobby and Rick. Hey, we want to meet with you. I said, well, I'm sort of almost done in this deal. I didn't tell them who with. They said, just don't do anything. We meet with us first. I met with them, and I knew that they had just recruited Connor successfully, and I'd seen Connor. I tried to recruit him, and it's Bobby Orr. It's Rick Kern, who I got a long relationship with. They've got McDavid. They've got Aaron Ekblad as clients. It's a good setup for me to try to grow my business. And so I joined Orr Hockey in 2011, and that's how I really got going in the agent business.
Jeff Jackson joins us. So you joined because I think Connor told me originally like Bobby Orr they had agreed to. So how did that transition go from them having him to you becoming Connor's full-time agent?
Well, they had recruited him, and they had an Ontario agent at the time who had left the company. And sort of part of what I saw when they approached me was like, I'll have the opportunity to represent Connor. And I said that. I said, like, if I'm doing this, I want to be involved in Connor McDavid, because I had tried to recruit him on my own, on my little agency. I talked to Brian McDavid a couple of times, and they were like, yeah, well, that's what we're getting you for. Like, and Connor was 15 at the time. And the agent business is, pretty savage sometimes. There's lots of people lurking around all the time. So sort of my job was to work closely with Connor and Aaron and some of the other guys and keep them as our clients. And thank God that we were able to do that.
And so, you know what? There are some sharks, if you want to use that term, maybe at times, that are looking around and trying to steal clients and whisper in their ear and different things like that. But then there's also like Connor McDavid's a very unique case, right? Because there's just like generational player. To me, there's very few of them. And that's what he was. And, people talked about him at a young age. And, it was always amazing to me kind of how mature he was throughout everything. He had to mature earlier than he probably should have, just based on the situation. As you evolve in that agent player becomes like a friendship a little bit, right? Like, you have to look out for him a little bit. And I know the player works for you, but how did you
actually, we work for them.
Yeah. Sorry. That's what I meant. Yeah. And how did you massage that to know that, okay, like, I have to look out for Connor, but at the same time, I have other clients, and I don't want, it's like having kids. You don't want to look like you're favoring one.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't find it difficult to manage time. I think going back, like having law school, working at a law firm where I had multiple files going on, working for the Leafs and doing all kinds of things at once, to be able to sort of manage a group of young men and with their families. I didn't find it too hard to balance it. I gave Connor lots of attention, but I gave all the guys lots of attention. And some of them needed more constantly, and some of them were low maintenance, if you want to call it that. And they would only, when they needed you, they wanted you there to help, or their parents did. So it was sort of like fluid that way. Connor was not a high maintenance client. He's very driven. Brian and Kelly they're very close with Connor. We developed a very good, close relationship too. So there was lots of trust, and, it just built over time.
There must be at times, as you get to know the player and you get to know the person, maybe even more importantly, that you're watching some games, as a young kid coming up in junior, and he's doing great things. And he gets the NHL, the best league in the world. And there's at times where, he's embarrassing is probably too harsh of a word, where like he's the best player on the ice and it's really not even close. And you're just like, but then when he's done hockey, he's just Connor McDavid, right? Like, did you ever find yourself sometimes being like, yeah, okay, like I can't be in awe of my own client?
Well, I was in awe of a lot. I think just like everybody else. I mean, some of the things he would what he continues to do. Even last year, watching games, I would be sitting on the couch late night games for me in Ontario, so it's late at night, and I remember one night he scored the goal. I guess that was maybe 2 years ago against the Rangers, where he did the loop out. I jumped off the couch and yelled, because it's things like that bring longtime hockey people out of their seat, and that's why longtime hockey people all say the same thing. It's like, we've never seen anything like it, really, right? But he puts so much work into it. He's so dedicated, and he as you know, because you see him, you've seen him for 8 years. He's a special kid. He's very humble, and he also like cares about his teammates and all that stuff. That's why he's such a good leader.
Yeah, it's funny because obviously, I don't ever pretend to know the guys that well. We have like a work relationship with them, and Connor and I have had lots of conversations over the years. But it's funny when you see a kid come in at 18, and he was still mature at 18, and then you see him at 26 and 7. And that's just somebody who sees like a small portion of him. For you, who's somebody who was kind of in that inner circle, it must be pretty unique to see someone who's able to continue to climb up to greatness while maintaining being humble and really keeping his nose clean in today's era where there's so many people that would love nothing more than to see someone trip over themselves.
Yeah.
You never see that with him.
Yeah, no, I mean, he's diligent. He takes very good care of himself, and it's amazing to me. Like you said it, he was mature when he came in, but now you see, you heard lots of criticism sometimes in his first 3 or 4 years about, he's too abrupt with the media, or he's standoffish, or he doesn't. He was sort of being protective, and he wasn't confident in it. Now you see him, and he's very at ease with it. It's that maturity has like flowed into that part of him now, where he's joking around, and it's really nice to see. And it's been a progression, but it's like now he's just so comfortable with all of it.
Yeah, and I also think he might be naturally a little bit of an introvert, and some people forget that, like, who you are naturally. I don't care if you're a superstar, you can't change who you are. And some people are overtly more comfortable in situations talking. And I've always said, hey, like, I love talking to guys one-on-one, because in a scrum, it's just different. Because now there's 7 or 8 people, and you don't know if you don't always trust 7 or 8 people equally as you might one-on-one. So it's just,
that's
it's a different situation. Right. As Jeff Jackson joins us. And so, Jeff, I know a lot of Oilers fans are like, they sit there like, we got Connor McDavid's former agent. He's the CEO of the team now. This is going to rubber stamp that he's re-signing here. And I've been saying for years that I'm like, it's going to be hard pressed for Connor to find a better player than Leon. And definitely Leon can't find a better player than Connor. So it works out. But when you took the job and you talked to the conversations with Daryl, and you mentioned it was kind of like 6 to 8 weeks conversations to see it, what ultimately led you to want to take on the challenge of being a CEO of an NHL team, organization, I should say? Well,
I mean, I'll just step back for 1 sec, because I wasn't looking to change jobs. Like, I loved being at Wasserman. It's a great agency I had great colleagues, and not only in hockey, but all the other sports, football, basketball, baseball. Casey Wasserman, fantastic leader. I learned a lot there. So I wasn't looking to change, and initially I wasn't really overly open to the idea.
Okay.
But I said I would think about it. Then I met with Daryl and talked to him, and I really enjoyed that. We had a nice long meeting. I looked at the team. I looked at the city, is so behind the team. The fans are great. I thought about, the opportunity to have a chance to win a Stanley Cup with Connor, but also with like Evan Bouchard, who was a client of ours, and Connor Brown was a client of ours, and all the players that have been here for a while, like Darnell Nurse and Nuge and all these other guys who put a lot of time and effort into making this team what it is. So it wasn't an easy decision, but I also thought, like, if I'm 65 years old and I look back and I didn't do that, I'd be kicking myself for sure.
Okay.
These jobs don't come along very often, and here's one being sort of offered to me, and I was like, I got to do this. So ultimately, that was sort of my thought process.
And then you have a Hall of Fame general manager in Ken Holland, who has tons of experience. I'm assuming that makes it a little bit easier, where you're like, hey, you know what? We got people with experience in place. Talk about that relationship. Ken talked about it today. He goes, I'm not worried about my future. I've got 1 year left. And, he's kind of hinted he's not sure what he wants to do yet. And I think that's fair. But how do you approach that? Like, that's you're coming up on potentially 2 summers of 2 of the biggest negotiations in the franchise's history. How important is it to have a GM with experience?
Oh, it's very important. So, and I should have probably, part of my thought process was that I was going to get a chance to work with Ken, because I have had like a high degree of respect for him for a long time. He's done a great job here in the 4 years. And I thought, like, I don't have to go in there as in this role and do anything drastic, especially with the team, the big team. This job is more sort of long-term planning and making sure that we're set up for success, every year. And that's been my focus so far, is just looking at some of the things like, the scouting department and the sports science and analytics and player development, all those things that are underlying and foundational things that make you successful. But getting a chance to work with Ken was a big part of why I made the decision. So that's part of it. And then as far as the big negotiations, I think for both Leon and Connor, I've said this a few times, it's our job to make sure that we're the team that's competing for the cup. It's hard to win the cup.
Yes.
It's like, it's not, nobody's giving that thing away. And it's a long season. Like Kenny said it today in the meeting with the players that we had. It's a marathon. You got to have some luck. You got to stay healthy. We have a very good team. There's probably 8 to 10 other teams who are really good teams who are going to vie for the cup. So it's our job to convince those 2 players and others, but those 2 guys mainly, that this is the best spot to have that opportunity to keep winning. And Daryl Cates is, he's done an unreal job here with the facility, the way he treats the players, all the resources that were given to help these players succeed. So, I'm confident that we're going to keep him, but like you said, it's not a rubber stamp.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, interesting you mentioned there the sports science factor. In your previous role, you talked to every organization. You had clients from so many different teams. So you probably got a good sense of lots of things that go on in different organizations, and you're able to maybe look and say, hey, because, coaches always tell me, man, if you're not stealing ideas from the other guys, like that's how you become a better coach, because somebody knows something that maybe you don't. You're like, oh, that's a good idea. Do you feel that's an advantage you have? Maybe is that you kind of have an understanding of what a lot of the other teams do, and now you want to take your own belief system and incorporate it. And if so, how long do you think that takes to really kind of interject some of the things you want? And do you have a timeline on anything that you think is like priority number 1 or number 2?
Yeah, I mean, I think that having been in the agent business and seen all the other organizations over a course of, 11, 12 years, it does give you an opportunity to see some things that are done really well by some organizations, not all of them. And some do some really well and others do other things well. So you can pick and choose, try to grab nuggets from the good nuggets from the teams and sort of put that together. And then on the agent side of things, we were very proactive trying to do player development on our own. We had some analytics, we had sports science internally at Wasserman. So we had a sort of a resource that we could go for that sort of stuff. Very innovative company. So I learned a lot on that front. So I think that I'm not rushing in and creating departments all over the place, but we are starting. We're gonna have an announcement shortly on some analytics. Okay. Which is very exciting for us to get that going. And then, the Oilers have one of the finest medical staffs in the league, in my opinion. So working with TD4s and his staff and Dr. Nadu, we'll just kind of continue to build off of what they already have done. They're very progressive, well-educated, continue to educate themselves. But there's ways that we can get incrementally better. So I think these are things that don't happen overnight. I don't have timelines for stuff, okay, but I do have a strategic plan that I want to implement, and it may take, it may take a few months, it may take a year, but it's going to happen.
you talk about how you had kind of an analytics department at your agency, and we've seen the evolution of it. I've talked to guys who are invested in guys who work independently, guys who work for certain teams, and it's always evolving and changing. And some of them tell me, you know what, the best analytics in the game of hockey, there's still like maybe a 30% that's just unpredictable. There's you know, so you want to be as close as you can, but then you have to understand without driving yourself crazy that sometimes it's just out of your control.
Yeah, I mean, I think analytics is another good tool to use. That's essentially what it is. And if you have a toolbox and you don't have one part of the toolbox that's you lost your one tool and you're not using it, like it's going to hurt you. So to me, like, get that toolbox full, use analytics, but you have to use all the other stuff that, you know, whether it's watching games in person, using your own kind of sight and smell test of players, feel, all the intangible things with players are very important. But what the analytics can do is it can drive, you know, you can build programs where you drive focus on whether it's amateur scouting, pro scouting, player contracts, like, you know, using it to see when guys are at peak performance, all that sort of stuff that you can't do without the data. So like, that's where we're going to use it. But we're also going to continue to use like the traditional methods of like player evaluation, because that's not going anywhere.
And then what about the business side as the CEO of the company? Obviously, you have a pretty good business background. I think you understand numbers quite well. And then, you know, negotiating contracts and sponsorships. Obviously, you did that with players. How much of it's all encompassing as the CEO, right?
Well, I'm CEO of hockey operations, and Jurgen is the CEO on the business side. He's been with the OEG for a number of years, so he continues to do that. We work closely on, I think, a bunch of stuff. We've gotten to know each other a little bit early on, and he's been traveling a lot, so I don't have to get into the weeds on the business side too much. But they naturally interact.
Yeah, they interact.
Yeah,
there's certain times where you have to cross over. So you have to be aware.
We have our offices are right beside each other, and I'm sure we'll spend tons of time together.
And one last one for you. You're father of four. You have a daughter who's living in England. Your son's doing really well in New York. And then you have your two youngest kids still at home in high school. How are you as a sports dad?
I was pretty good. I mean, I never got too excited about, you know, whether they were getting a lot of ice time or making teams, but all the kids have participated in sports their whole life. Liam, my 28-year-old son, when I worked for the Leafs, I missed a lot of his basketball because I was doing a lot of stuff, as I said earlier, traveling to Europe, my kids always like tease me that I was in Russia and I miss everything. So I did spend a lot of time in Russia one year, and I don't think I missed too much, but I seem like I missed some key games for Liam because he brings it up in a joking way. But yeah, they all played sports. My two youngest now teenagers, Owen and Luke, they're playing football and basketball, so they're out of hockey now, which was great because I actually love going and watching the two other sports, and they both are quite good at both, and and more importantly, they love it. So yeah, my wife and I have a ball going to watch them play.
Now, it could maybe be Bills fans there, could be Raptors fans, but they're Toronto kids. It might be Leafs fans. Now the dad's working for the Oilers. Is that an easy change, or do you have to you gotta make sure you're bringing home some signed swag to win them over?
They're Leaf fans, but like I've told them several times over the last 6 weeks, you're not Leaf fans anymore. Even though I'm an alumni and all the other things. Yeah, I said you got to switch the allegiance. You're now an Oiler fan, but they're sort of bucking it. But we'll convert them.
Awesome. Jeff, thanks so much. I know you're super busy. We really appreciate taking some time to come join us here in Sports 1440 studio. And best of luck. I know you're just as excited as all the Oilers fans. They can't wait to see what's going to happen in the 23-24 season.
Yeah, I'm very excited. And thanks for having me.
That is Jeff Jackson, CEO of the Edmonton Oilers, our Who Is It Wednesday guest. We'll take a quick break. We'll come back on the Gregor Show presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
McCafe now has cold brew beverages, and they're smooth.
Sports radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
We continue on. Big thanks to the CEO of the Edmonton Oilers, Jeff Jackson. Also, a big shout out to Tim Shipton, Jamie Cartmill for helping set that up. A really good conversation. Jeff's pretty excited. I know the text line's firing up. Hey, Gregor, any idea on what they're going to do with analytics? Well, I think they're going to hire somebody who has a significant background in new age analytics. And because they hired Rick Precy, who obviously is into it too, but I think they're going to have somebody who just has more of a understanding of it, and I think that announcement's going to come rather quickly. So don't be surprised. Next few days, I would think there's a very good chance you'll hear an announcement there, which will make some people happy. I love what Jeff said. It's a tool. It's not the do-all, end-all. It's one tool. And just like in your toolbox, sometimes you're going to need a wrench, sometimes you're going to need a screwdriver, sometimes you're going to need a hammer. And on a different day, you're going to have different things. There's still got to be the human element, no question. And the great part is most people who understand analytics understand that it's not just, well, all you got to do is do analytics. Of course not. You have to do many different things. And then sometimes you got to be a little bit lucky. You just have to be, right? Like now, it's not so much analytics because this is an amateur draft, but it's like Wyatt Johnson. He played 7 games. Dallas traded down 8 spots. Like usually if you think you can get a guy, you'll trade down 1 or 2. You're not going to trade 8 because you don't know what 8 other teams are going to do. And they were able to get him at 23. I know a lot of people have said, well, that's why Tyler Wright got fired. I think that's a little naive. I think it's too easy to try to connect a line to a dot that might not be there because Dallas themselves didn't pick him when they had the chance. They traded down. He played 7 games. I don't know how anybody can say in 7 games for sure. You're like, oh, this guy, he's going to go right to the NHL in those 7 games. Now, if it was Connor McDavid, I can understand it. But obviously, nobody saw that Wyatt Johnson was that coming out of it. Hey, guys, great interview with CEO Jeff. He seems humble and calming. Almost sounded like a Connor interview. Dennis, still a Browns fan? Oh, I can tell you right now, Jeff can be very fiery. There's no question about it. But you know what? I think with experience, he knows what he's had his hands on a lot of different elements, right? So he understands the player point of view because he was a former NHL player. He understands kind of what management's role is. He was kind of got in at the ground level, worked his way up, and then he was running the American League team. He was assistant GM on the NHL team. He was a capologist. And then he worked on the player agent side. So I think when you go into negotiation potentially, he's going to have relationships with some of the agents, good or bad, depending on who it is. But I think he'll understand knowing like, okay, how does an agent think and what's their strategy in certain negotiations, right? What are things that are like, for sure, this is what we need? What are some things that you might be able to negotiate on? So I think that's an advantage for sure. And as he said, you're working with Ken Holland, who's a Hall of Fame GM. You got Connor McDavid, who's a future Hall of Fame player. You have Leon Draisaitl, who's a future Hall of Fame player. Like it's a good organization to come into. You have an owner who is willing to spend. There is lots of different things to do it. Hey, Greg's another awesome interview, man. I have to say, you guys have been absolutely killing it since he came back on air. I'm loving it. Comes in from Dan. Oh, thanks, Dan. I appreciate it, man. It's, you know what? I look forward to a little bit long form interview that goes a little bit longer, and it doesn't have to just be about the topic of the day. And that's what Wednesdays is about for me. And you know what? We're going to go to, you know, lots of different areas. It's not always going to be hockey. We have Dave Neto on last week and people were loving it. So that's great. And that's kind of what the whole point of Who Is It Wednesday. And I should say a big shout out because I think there was one person who got it. Sean D in Lethbridge was the only person who had guessed Jeff Jackson. And he guessed it after we gave the final hints, which is totally fine. That's the whole point. Well, I'd like to see it give it, but they don't want to be too easy, Connor Halley.
Well, Mike D on YouTube. Before the show even started, he guessed it.
Really?
So I thought we had a leak. I was
yeah, well, somebody might have been
I was questioning some people.
because to go on you don't even know. We haven't given you any hint. So yeah, somebody somewhere, we need to find the leak.
Sniff it out.
Who's that? You know, because you definitely don't want leaks. Not at all. So that's good. Hey guys, what do you think the odds are that Evan Bouchard signs long-term because he was a former client? Wow. Honestly, I can't answer that question. Right. And here's the thing about it's a unique relationship that you go from being the agent to now working for the organization who wants to sign the player. And you still want to be on the same side, but it's a negotiation. Because in any contract negotiation, it's rare that if you walk in, the player says, I believe I'm worth, let's say, just round number, $5 million. And the team's like, you're right. That's the exact number we had. Okay, great. Because even if the team thought you were worth 5 and you came in with 5, they'd be like, well, let's counter with a little bit lower number here. Maybe 4.85, 4.5, 4.25, right? So it's rare you're ever just going to have some people walk in. I know some people say, hey, it's Connor McDavid, whatever number he wants, you should get. And I can understand that, right? I think there's some validity to that. But also, in a salary cap world, if you want to win, and I know the max a player can get is 20%, no NHL superstar who took 20% is likely going to win because you don't play that many minutes. Like Connor McDavid plays the most minutes of any forward in the league. Still only 22 minutes a night, right? So there's 38 minutes without him. Now he's got Leon Draisaitl and he's got some other players, which is great. But the truth is, in the NHL salary cap, because of how the game's played and there's penalty killers and different things like that, that if you go to the max that you can get as a top-end player, I think it really limits your ability to win. And Connor McDavid is never going to want or need anything financially in his life, right? When this current contract is up, he'll already be over $100 million. He's not going to need money. He'll be fine. Now, I don't expect him to decide, hey, you know what? Pay me $6 million. I'll be good. Of course not. But I don't think he has to look, and if the salary cap is $80 million or $85 million, whatever the number is in 3 years, that he's like, well, geez, you know, if it's 80, I could get 16 at 20%. He could do it. But I'd be stunned if he did. Right? Well, it's actually 82.5 now, so I should say 90. So then would he say I could get 18 million? He could, but I don't think he will because he wants to win. And even if he's won already, then he's going to want to win again. Right? That becomes, it's funny. You chase it. And then once you get it, you talk to players who won once. Now they're like, oh my goodness, I want to have that feeling again. For sure. Hey, Greg's, are they shifting low tide into analytics from Ranchand? No, LT will not be. He's got a lock solid contract he can't get out of. No, I'm kidding. But no, I think LT would be the first one to tell you he really likes analytics. He probably wouldn't be a guy to head up an analytics department. Pretty difficult job. No question about it. Coming up in the final few hours of the Wednesday edition of the Jason Gregor Show, we will hear from Ian Furness as we continue to go around the Pacific Division, some previews. The Kraken, of course, had a very surprising season last year. Can it continue? Can they get better goaltending? Because you can chop them up as another team that didn't have the goaltending they want. They had worse goaltending in the orders overall in the regular season, but they still were a 100-point team. So lots of room. Charlie Huddy, who is going up on the Oilers Wall of Fame, the Ring of Honor, on October 26th against the Rangers. Him and Doug Waite. That was announced earlier today. Charlie Huddy will join us. Mark Spector. We got a lot of text to get to at 833-401-1440. But first, let's get to the con man and a Sports 1440 update brought to you by Ewell. From LED lighting audits and retrofits to design, build, distribution systems, Ewell services can give the edge you need to impress your clients. EWEL.ca.
Edmonton Oilers defenseman Matthias Ekholm is dealing with a minor hip flexor injury and may take a few days before he gets going at training camp. The Oilers kicking off preseason Sunday, 4 o'clock, taking on the Jets. The Jays in action once again, taking on the New York Yankees. First pitch set for 5:07. Big race going on in the wild card race in the AL right now. Right now, the Mariners, who are right in the thick of things, they lead the Athletics 6-3. That's in the bottom of the 8th. And earlier today, the Rangers got past the Red Sox 15-5. Elsewhere, Astros doubled up the Orioles 2-1. Royals over the Guardians 6-2. White Sox falling to the Nationals 13-3. It was the Phillies getting past the Braves 6-5 in extras, and the Twins down the Reds 5-3. A couple other games going on right now. Diamondbacks lead the Giants 7-1 midway through the 8th. And down in San Diego, the Rockies have a 2-1 lead over the Padres. That's in the 7th. Later today, Angels take on the Rays. Marlins host the Mets. The Pirates head to Chicago to take on the Cubbies. Cards host the Brewers. Dodgers up against the Tigers. And one game in the AJ tonight, Sherwood Park travels to Lloydminster to take on the Bobcats. That one starts just after 7. Coming up in hour 3 of the Jason Gregor Show, we'll head out to Seattle and be joined by Ian Furness of 93.3 KJR, and we'll ask 5 questions.
This has been a Sports 1440 update.
Christensen Communities, the name in active adult living. Enjoy retirement living without compromise. At Christensen, we understand that each lifestyle is unique. We are committed to providing choice through optional dining, personal services, and recreation programs to suit your current and future needs. Enjoy maintenance-free living, build new friendships, and a safe, independent community. Large suites with full kitchens and in-suite laundry, on-site amenities, and so much more. Find out more today about our communities across the province at cblhomes.com.
There's 2 seasons in Alberta, winter and construction. During these days of traffic barricades and slower commutes, GS Construction reminds you those crews are improving our communities. They're rehabilitating and upgrading Edmonton's infrastructure all across the city. When you see the barricades and run into a traffic backup, remember, the crews are there to help. Drive slow and be patient. Help make our city better and join the GS Construction team. See what they're hiring for on Indeed.com. GS Construction, laying the groundwork for your community since 1974.
How exciting is it to have Sports Talk Radio back in Edmonton?
Tie game, bottom of the ninth, the full count. The kick, the pitch. It's high, it's far, it is gone! Walk-off home run!
Yeah, it's pretty much like that. Edmonton Kubota is excited to welcome back Sports Talk Radio, Sports 1440. We'll be dialed in for every minute. Get it done, and then some at Edmonton Kubota. All compact BX tractors on sale with 0% financing for 84 months. Stop by on 128th Ave or visit edmontonkubota.com.
The Junior Prospects Hockey League is entering its 2nd season of gameplay. The JPHL now offers academic and athletic opportunities in the U14, 15, 17, and U18 age divisions. All JPHL games are broadcast online on Silent Ice TV with a showcase-style game schedule and high level of travel and accommodations for its team, staff, and players. To learn more about why the JPHL is the fastest-growing elite hockey academy stream in Western Canada, visit juniorprospectshockeyleague.com.
Mr. Rooter hits the links.
So I tell the guy it's leaking because you have a hole-in-one.
Hey, Mr. Rooter, you have a better chance of hitting the green with a crescent wrench, you bum.
Oh, boy. It's my rival.
Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Welcome back. Wednesday afternoon. Gregor, Connor Halley with you. Thanks for listening. We're watching. If you're watching us on our YouTube channel for Oilers Nation, check it out there. Of course, the Gregor Show on Sports 1440. And Oilers Nation is presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website where all the revenues 100% stay right here in the lovely province of Alberta. Texts are humming in at 833-401-1440. Lots of texts coming in that I don't want to get to, but hey guys, I don't even see Connor as a guy who spends his money. He seems to be responsible to max out his lifestyle. Yeah, I have no idea. I never, you know what? Spending habits, like, you might know some of your really good friends' spending habits, but even then you might not know. Right? Like right now, do you know how many of your friends are just paying off the minimum on their Visa every month? I don't know. I hope none, because you're getting screwed over. That's a lot of interest. Don't do it. Don't do it. So, and like, you think about your close friends. Do you ask them, like, how much did you put down in your house? You know, like, there's, I don't know, it's kind of unique. Like, there's certain conversations you just don't have. So I have no idea. McDavid's got, like when you make that much money, now we've seen cases, right? We saw it on 30 for 30, the broke ones, and, you know, Andre Rison and others. So yes, there are some people who will make some really bad decisions with their money and blow it. So you definitely can do it. There's no question about it. You can. But I'll say this. It's hard work to want to waste that much money. You would have to put in a lot of time and a lot of work. So see where it goes. Greg, did you say weight is going up on the Wall of Honor for the Oilers? When? Yeah, well, it's not the Wall of Honor, Dave, but it is it's the Oilers Hall of Fame. You can call it the Ring of Honor if you want to, of course, because it stays in. You don't have they have their jersey, and that's really only for people who end up in the Hockey Hall of Fame. I'm pretty safe in saying that number 97 will be up in the rafters at one point. I think number 29 is going to be up in the rafters as well. And anybody who has their jersey retired also gets their plaque in the Hall of Fame for the Oilers. So that's why, you know, any suggestions you have for people that want to go in, just remember that Anderson, Gretzky, all those guys, Rod Phillips, they're already up there. Next game you go to, you can see it. It's right there. And then on October 26th, it's a Thursday, the Oilers are hosting the New York Rangers 3 days before the Heritage Classic. And Doug Weight and Charlie Huddy will be the third and fourth new additions. I'm not including any of the existing ones who just, you know, went in. They don't have a ceremony because they already had their ceremony, as they should. You know, you don't need another one. But Charlie Huddy played for the Oilers for a long time, won 5 Stanley Cups, one of only 7 players to win, who was on all 5 teams with the Oilers. And then Doug Weight, who for 7 seasons was their leading scorer. And the only other year he wasn't is because he got injured and missed something like 39 games, I think it was. So you're not going to get much complaints over this. Like I said, I think the first few years, there won't be any real debates or discussions on the people that get in. But coming in a few years down the road, that's when it's going to say, hey, wait a second, I think this person should be in before that person. And you know what? There's probably going to be a valid argument either way, which will make it great. But I think the first few years, there's some that, to me anyway, and I'm on the, I'm lucky enough to be on the committee. Now, I only get 1 vote, right? There's 11 people on the committee. And in order to get accepted, and how it works is you sit down, everybody shows up, and you don't discuss with the other 10 members who you're nominating. So some years, like this year, there was 6 because multiple people had Charlie Huddy and multiple people had Doug Weight. That's just how it goes. And I'm not at liberty to say who the other people were who were nominated. I can just tell you there's a total of 6. So 2 out of the 6 got in. And then next year, people will come in If the person you nominated last year didn't get in, maybe you can nominate him again. It's your choice. Maybe look at something else. So we'll see. So that's how it goes. And then they do a vote. It's a private vote. You send in actually, Jeff from the Hockey Hall of Fame is the one you send your vote to. So it's all authentic and everybody knows it's done by the book. There's no little scratching back. Hey, who you voting for? None of that. And you submit your list in order of the ones you think are eligible. So out of the 6, I actually thought there was 3. And I have to put them in order of 1, 2, 3. And then you need 9 of the 11 votes. So somebody has to be on 9 ballots. Charlie Huddy was obviously on 9. Maybe he was on all 11. Doug Waite, I don't know. I'm not privy to that. It doesn't say unanimous or not. It just says you're in or that's it. Now there's only 2 that can make it as well. So, and then it might come down to, geez, maybe, I guess you couldn't have 2 with 11 and 2. Well, yeah, maybe you could have 2 with 11 and 1 on 10. And the person on 10 just has to wait another year. So we'll see how it goes. Hey, guys, you think Tommy Salo was an Oiler long enough to be considered? Tommy Salo was I'm kind of a stickler a little bit on. So Tommy Salo played what? 8 years? I got to look it up. Tommy Salo, Oilers, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 6 years. 6 years and 5 full seasons. Yeah, that's right on the cusp. He was good. He was a good goalie. I would, if I'm looking at Andy Moog, Bill Ranford, Curtis Joseph, they'd probably be ahead of him. And I think some people might even put Dwayne Rolson ahead because of 06 and just the few years he had. So, yeah, you know what? Tommy Salo. My initial would say no, but again, I'm only 1 vote, right? And a lot of it depends on the presentation because they come in and they make you think about things that maybe you haven't thought about before. Right? It's the job of the presenter to present that person in a fashion where you're like, I think I got to vote for them. That's really good. Maybe there's some things you uncover that you didn't know. Right. So at least that's for me. I kind of take it serious. You want to come in with some data and some numbers and some other things as to why there would be there. Hey, Greg's, is there any specific criteria? Well, the criteria is they have to be, as a player, retired for at least 5 years. Now, I'm going to say this. When Connor McDavid retires, will there be an exception? I'm just going to go on a limb and say there might be. I don't know. Who knows? McDavid's probably going to play for what? 15 more years? So lots can change. Who knows what happens then or now? But that's it. Now, retired from, let's say you retired from as a player. If you were a coach for a long time and now you're suddenly still coaching, well, then they would still have qualifications. So, like I said, I think there's some obvious ones. But then there's going to be some healthy debates moving forward about that. So, hey, guys, never mind the orders. I think Bill Ranford should be in the Hockey Hall of Fame. Well, he did win the Conn Smythe. He was unreal for the Edmonton Oilers. There's no question about that. Right? He had, and man, for many years there, the Oilers were, he was on those Oiler teams when they were bad in 93 and 94, 95. He's like a freedom fighter. I don't know. I've read a lot of Paul online who covers the Hockey Hall of Fame, and he goes really in depth and breaks it down and adjusts by era and everything like that. And I don't think Bill Ranford had numbers that really stack because the goaltending position overall, they would feel that there's lots more goalies that potentially could get in, and you could probably have an argument for that. I've never heard. I'll have to ask Paul where he would have Ranford. I'm going to guess. I don't think it's Hockey Hall of Fame worthy. You know what? He had the great year for Edmonton and a few good years for Edmonton. Right? Won World Championships. Really solid goaltender. But Hall of Fame, man, that's pretty tough to get in. For sure. Guys, I can't believe you wouldn't put Tommy Salo in. You kidding? Yeah, no, I'm not kidding. Hey, guys, Salo's third in games played and wins for Oiler goalies. Yes, but keep in mind that Grant Fuhr and Andy Moog split a lot of time, right? Tommy Salo didn't have anybody else to play. The Oilers weren't very good, but they didn't have, anybody else that you could split time with them. I'd have to go back and look at, like, where was Tommy Salo? Was he top 10 in the league during his time? He might have played a lot of games. And so because you play a lot of games, you're going to have a chance for wins. And he played longer than Curtis Joseph, but was he more impactful than Curtis Joseph? Think about Curtis Joseph. 97, 98, 99. Like, look how good he was. So, yeah, for me, Ranford better than Salo, Joseph better than Salo, Moog better than Salo, Fuhr better than Salo. For me, for sure. That's how I would have it. I would have Tommy Salo behind those four, guaranteed. Good discussion, though. Now, when we come back, I'm very curious about goaltending for this team. Because you thought the Oilers goaltending at time, team defense, struggled a bit last year. Well, I can tell you, compared to Seattle, the Oilers had much better goaltending. You look at Seattle compared to Edmonton. Seattle last year, their team save percentage, 890. Not good. Will it be better? We'll find out next. Ian Furness joins us on the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca.
McCafe now has cold brew beverages, and they're smooth. Made with 100% Arabica beans, steeped cold and slow for an irresistibly smooth taste. McCafe cold brew beverages, for a limited time only at participating McDonald's.
PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated gambling website, features a variety of responsible gambling tools such as a time clock, deposit limits, and more. Remember, if you gamble, use your game sense. Visit GameSenseAB.ca to find out more.
Christensen Communities, the name in active adult living. Enjoy retirement living without compromise. At Christensen, we understand that each lifestyle is unique. We are committed to providing choice through optional dining, personal services, recreation programs, and care plans to suit your current and future needs. Enjoy maintenance-free living and build new friendships in a safe, independent community. Large suites with full kitchens and in-suite laundry, on-site amenities, and so much more. Find out more today about our communities across the province at cdlhomes.com.
There's two seasons in Alberta, winter and construction. During these days of traffic barricades and slower commutes, GS Construction reminds you those crews are improving our communities. They're rehabilitating and upgrading Edmonton's infrastructure all across the city. When you see the barricades and run into a traffic backup, remember, the crews are there to help. Drive slow and be patient. Help make our city better and join the GS Construction team. See what they're hiring for on Indeed.com. GS Construction, laying the groundwork for your community since 1974.
Are you ready to light up your game like Edmonton lights up the ice? Then choose Ewell. Electrical Wholesalers Edmonton Limited offers lightning fast service. Just like your favorite forward, they deliver your electrical supplies in record time. Plus winning quality. They only stock the best. And don't forget about their all-star support. When it comes to customer service, they're the playmakers. So don't sit in the dark. Make the power play and visit Ewell today. Online at ewel.ca, where excellence in electrical meets the heart of hockey.
Edmonton's premium live music and party venue is
On the Rocks.
Check out Bingo Tunes on Monday. Perform on the best stage in town with karaoke on Wednesdays. Learn how to salsa with Salsa Rocks on Thursdays. And every weekend, OTR goes live.
With your favorite bands on the OTR stage and DJ Kenny K.
For everything that's going on at On the Rocks, give us a follow.
Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter.
At On the Rocks, EDM.
Eat well, party hard.
On the Rocks.
On the Rocks.
On the Rocks. Open every day till 2 a.m.
It's time to gear up for fall at Wolf GMC Buick, but there's a catch. We'll get to that. You're not going to pay high rates like 6.9%. You'll pay 0% financing on all in-stock GMC Sierra Half-Ton Pro Editions, and that's for 60 months. You'll also save $750 if you're a Costco member. 0% financing for 60 months on all in-stock GMC Sierra Half-Ton Pro Editions. The catch? You'll need to get here ASAP because inventory is cruising off the lot pretty quickly. Wolf GMC Buick. We're making it easy.
Hey, Alberta drivers. New rules are in place to protect roadside workers.
Now, when you see first responders, tow trucks, or highway maintenance vehicles with flashing lights on the side of the road, you must move over if it's safe to do so. If you can't move over, slow down to at least 60 kilometers.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
We roll through Wednesday afternoon. This just coming down. Welcome back, everyone, to the Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca. You can text us 833-401-1440 in our Jiffy Lube inbox. Vladdy Guerrero scratched tonight with knee discomfort. So, won't be in the lineup tonight for the Jays as they continue to try to secure a playoff spot as they battle Seattle, also Texas Rangers, and I guess in a roundabout way, Houston as well. So, there's 3 spots there because Houston, of course, when their division, the Jays can't take that spot. They can take one of the 2 available wild card spots that they're in the hunt for. So taking on the Yankees tonight. And we shall see how it goes. Big win last night. They'll be looking for another one this evening as it's time now to go around the NHL, brought to you by McDonald's. Try the McDonald's Tasty Breakfast Trio. You can get a sausage or chicken McMuffin, sausage or chicken McGriddles, and a hash brown with a small premium roast coffee for only $5. It's a pretty good deal for the Blue Bill right now at McDonald's. And a good friend of the show from 93.3 KJR in Seattle, Ian Furness, joins us once again. Ian, welcome back to the show, my man. How you doing?
Jason, it's great to be on with you in the City of Champions, Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And congratulations on, sounds like what, a new show, new home for you?
Yeah, we brought Sports Radio back. So we got 4 shows right now and got more coming. So it's fantastic. Looking forward to it.
I'll send my resume. I'll send my resume up there right away.
There, you might be overly qualified. So we'll see. But no, that would be fantastic. Obviously, I know you're passionate about hockey and the Kraken. So I just wrote an article about the Oilers' team defense and goaltending, and because there's a lot of people like, oh, Edmonton's team defense is terrible. And after crunching the numbers, I'm like, wow, it really wasn't that terrible. They didn't give up a ton of high danger chances. Their penalty kills struggle at times. You know, their goaltending, I think, definitely can be better. But as I was doing it, I was comparing it to all the teams, the playoff teams, and then the other 4 that were close in Nashville and Calgary and Pittsburgh and Buffalo. And the Seattle Kraken, I'm like, they got 100 points when their goalies had an .890 combined save percentage, which is really like, it shows how good their offense was that they were able to overcome that. How much of that was on their goaltending? How much was on team defense?
I'd say more on goaltending. I thought, during the course of the regular season, Grubauer was just okay. Actually, he probably wasn't even just okay by NHL standards. And he was hurt for a chunk of the year. They had to go heavy with Martin Jones for a while. And he was good for a bit and then kind of wore down, as 33-year-old goalies tend to do, right? So that happened. And then, they balanced it off with 18 guys at 20-plus points. I mean, they really balanced team offensively. But I think what it was is, Grubauer was just okay in the regular season. But then, I mean, Jason, you saw him in the playoffs. And I
think we will have to get a better connection.
They got there because Grubauer was great, and what they paid him for a couple of years ago, and that we saw that Philip Grubauer. We just didn't see it in the regular season, but I think it was more on him and Jones struggling at times. DeCord came up and played well in spot. I would put it more on them. Hacksaw plays a pretty disciplined game, pretty structured game. So I would probably put it more on Grubauer. Didn't have a great regular season, but boy, was he good in the postseason.
Yeah, well, it was literally, it was like it was a totally different goaltender. So, hey, we saw Aiden Hill win a Stanley Cup and play unbelievable with a .931 save percentage. Yeah. And most people were like, can this guy even be a regular goalie? Like, it's such a finicky position. There's no question. So is that really that's one big question mark about Seattle coming into the season? And the other one is, can they have that many guys contribute offensively again?
Well, I think they can because they're balanced in this way. He liked to roll four lines probably more than most coaches did last year because they had a pretty solid fourth line. Now that fourth line's gone. Brandon Tanev's the only guy that's probably a fourth line player that's back on the roster right now. They got to replace Sprong. They got to replace Geeky, and Donato. But they've got a lot of guys. They got your guy Yamamoto's here, who I saw today at the media day. We had an internal media day for the media partners, and I saw the former Spokane Chief great, but he'll be in line for that. They get Burakovsky back, which is huge. He didn't play. He played like one period and one shift of the second half of the season. He got hurt the first game after the All-Star break. Didn't play in the postseason, so that adds quite a bit to the lineup right there. They got three really good lines, however they want to combine those. And they've got some scoring out of their defense last year too, Jason. They got a couple guys, Vince Dunn, top of the list that were pretty prolific in terms of, he's a 10th leading scorer among defensemen in the league. And, maybe that doesn't make you a Norris Trophy winner, but it certainly, puts you in a conversation with an upper echelon D-man. So I think they can do it again. They're just an interesting team how they're constructed, but it really is. They are, there's no superstar.
No.
And yet they're a really good, solid hockey team. And I guess the question always is, how far can you go without a superstar? And I'm talking to Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And so that's a question you guys talk about all the time, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, they're wondering if they have one. They're like, how many can you have right now in Edmonton? And
well, that's the thing. Yeah, like you guys have the best two goals, really the best two offensive players in the league, right? And you can't, and what does it translate it into? So I don't know if today's NHL has changed a little bit, but Seattle, McCann was a leading guy last year at 40 goals, 30 assists. That was your leading scorer. And Dunn was right there with them as well. And then, like I said, all these other guys chipped in with 20-plus points, between 20 and 40 points. So they're just balanced. They're good. They're solid. I'm assuming they're probably a 100-point team again, but because they bring everybody back. 5 of their top 6 D, 10 of their 12 forwards, and all 3 of their top lines are back. So they're solid. I just don't know how high end they are, I guess, if that makes sense.
Ian Furness joins us out of Seattle at KJR. And to me, the emergence of Jared McCann comes into Seattle, 27 goals his first year. Then he improves it up to 40 last year. And, some would say, now he's a perfect example of a player who, maybe in another organization didn't get the opportunity, or maybe he just wasn't physically or mentally ready. Like, it's hard to be a number one center. And that's what he played like. Like, is he still undervalued, or do you think people around the league are going to look and say, okay, this just wasn't 2 years. This guy's legit.
That's McCann, right? I
Yeah.
lost just for a second. McCann, yeah. Well, I mean, I think with McCann, I just think it's a classic case, and this is probably just me working in juniors at the WHL for so long. Like, you're drafting guys that are 17, 18 years old, and you're projecting them to be something. And one of two things is going to happen. Either you're going to be patient, it's going to pay off, or you're going to become impatient, and maybe they just never, they never develop. But I mean, goodness, I mean, you're projecting guys at such a young age, and then the way it seems to be structured with, restricted free agency and, win now mentality is there's just not a lot of patience for guys to develop sometimes. And I think that's what it was with him. He found a home, very comfortable. It's a very tight locker room, really good culture here. And I think, he became comfortable, and they put him in. Things combined, next thing you know, the guy's dropping a 40 spot and was just, and what was cool about him last year? He was good in his own end too. Like, he was truly playing both ends really solid. There were nights where maybe he didn't have a point. And you go, man, I noticed him all night. Like, I just I noticed McCann, and I think that was kind of fun to see. This league is just such. I mean, you guys know far better than us here in Seattle, as we're newbies to this, but it's just, you're drafting kids.
Oh yeah,
you're drafting babies, and it's just not everyone's going to come. I'm sure you're going to get to Shane Wright next. I mean, it takes a while. It's a grown man's league. It just is, and some guys just aren't quite ready yet.
Speaking of Shane Wright, he gets an exception that we really haven't seen, and I wonder if this is going to be something we see more down the road. Of course, it's either NHL or OHL under the old rules. But he's going to get an exemption that he can go to the American League, which I found kind of funny, Ian, that they announced it already. It's almost like Seattle saying, well, he's not making our team. He's going directly to the American League. So what do you make of this? Is he destined to start in the American League?
Yeah, you and I are on the same page. I brought that up the other day, and, not much to the chagrin of some, that there's a reason they pushed really hard and they were proactive in it. It's like they didn't wait. Like, if they were, they know there's no spot for him right now. Okay, yeah. I mean, he's going to be, at best, he's a fourth line center. I mean, Beniers, Wenberg, Gord are your 1, 2, and 3. I mean, they got McCann on the wall. So, Beniers, Wenberg, and Gord, 1, 2, 3. Oh, so he's your fourth line center. And yeah, they've got to find a fourth line center, but is he going to beat out any of the top three guys and get the ice time they probably want him to have? And no, I mean, Jason, he was playing on the fourth line for Coachella Valley in the Calder Cup Finals last year. So, and by no means, I don't want the headline for an S says he's a bust. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, even then he wasn't, playing, on a top line in the American Hockey League last year. The exception's a whole different deal. I think for your listeners, are we going to see that more often? I think the answer is no, unless, God forbid, we have another pandemic. I mean, the only reason that he got it is because the OHL, I don't know if the Quebec League did that year, but the year that the Dub played their weird 25, 30 game schedule. Like, I know here in Seattle, we just played, the guys just played Portland and Everett, maybe. I don't know if they played Tri. I guess maybe they played Tri in Spokane. It might have been U.S. division only, but they played their 30 game schedule. Well, the Ontario League didn't play it all that year. So that's not his fault. Like he would have had the years that were required at that point, but since they decided to shut her down, that's why he got that exception. But yeah, I think he's destined for the American Hockey League. He's certainly not going to be a top 3 center on this team, barring an injury. And even if an injury happens, I'm not sure he's going to be a top 3 center.
Any chance they'd play him at wing?
I don't know. I don't think so.
Okay.
Because I think, I don't think so. That's a great question, but my knee-jerk reaction would be no. You drafted him as, he's supposed to be your number 2 center at some point behind Beniers. That's your future. You draft these 2 guys at the top 5 number 2 and number 4 overall. You got these 2 guys that are, your 1-2 centers for the next decade or so. But I can't imagine that being the case. I guess they could try it. I don't know. Do you see a guy that plays wing? Would you see Shane Wright?
Well, you know what? For certain times, I don't think it'd be the end of the world. Like if Wright's playing with Matty Beniers, right? Like I remember for half a season or over, McDavid and Draisaitl play together at times. When they were younger, Crosby and Malkin were actually each other's most common line mate for a few years until they would add guys at the deadline. So I think that if Wright's that skilled, you know what? If it means he gets to play in the NHL on the wing with Beniers, I'll tell you right now, he'd gladly do that. So I think it's easier to make the switch from center to wing than it is from wing to center for sure. But I understand if you're like, hey, we want him to be a center. But if he's better than someone else in their top 9 as a winger, then I would keep him as a winger.
Yeah, and then I'll start going through the wings. I mean, Schwartz, Eberle, Bjorkstrand, who am I missing? McCann, Burakovsky, Tolvanen.
Yeah.
Did I get them all?
That's 6.
Like he's just not beating any of those guys. There's no way he's better than any of those guys. You know, I mean, their third lines, I think their third lines, they're most consistent in their best line. You know, so it's, you know, the Gord, Tolvanen, Bjorkstrand line was unreal last year. Like they were phenomenal. And so he's not playing there. That could be those guys out because, I mean, there's, you know, Haxtell's going to keep, you know, Haxtell, one thing was interesting with him, you know, you mentioned and I watch a ton of Oilers and I just, because I'm a Hockey Night in Canada junkie. And so I know I watched Draisaitl and McDavid do that, the mixing and the juggling and even some of the defensive pairs sometimes. Haxtell doesn't do that.
No.
Like his top 4 defensemen stay together all year. Alexiak, Morgan, Dunn, Larson. Like that just doesn't change. They'll find a running mate this year for Schultz. It might be Riker Evans. It might be the veteran from Dumoulin, I guess it is from Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But he doesn't. And then the Lions, when they got to the second half of the season last season, you know, the only change on the line was when, you know, McCann was banged up for a bit in the playoffs and Burakovsky wasn't there and Tolvanen moved up or Cartier moved up. But outside of that, man, he doesn't move his lines around much.
And that was my last question because I was looking at Seattle had 6 defensemen play 73 games. The most of any team in the NHL. Yeah. There's only 2 teams in the league who had 6 guys play over 70 games. Florida was the other one. And, you know, like the odds will tell you you're not going to stay that. You're not going to only have 21 combined missed games from your blue line. Do they have the depth to handle an injury on the back end in Seattle?
Well, it probably depends on who it is. You know, because Larson plays like 75 minutes a night in a 60-minute game. So it'd be, you know, but I think, and Dunn plays a ton too. Yeah, I think so, because I think they've got 7. I think Riker Evans is their 7th guy to start the season.
Okay.
And he played on, he was, you know, speaking of guys in the American Hockey League, he went down to last year to Coachella. He was top pair defenseman, played on the, PP1. He was doing everything. He's only 21 years old, but, you know, I think Riker is at worst your 7th defenseman, and he's probably ready to go. I saw him today. He looks bigger than he did before. He's obviously, you know, it goes back. He's 19 or 20. He doesn't look the part yet. He looks the part now. You know, and they've got some other guys. I mean, I don't think Megna's in the roster still, but I can't. Cale Fleury, guys like that. I mean, they've got a handful of guys, but I would just say, how many NHL teams go, you know, 8 deep DUIs anyway, right?
Yeah.
I mean, if you lose more than one, then you have an issue. If you can probably afford to lose one for a little bit of time, but they're so solid there, and you know, their big thing last year, honestly, Jason, was they had to re-sign both Dunn and Borgen as restricted free agents, and they got that done, and they got those guys down, and you know, Alexiak, Borgen were just hammers. I mean, they were just shut down, especially in the postseason. You guys know what Larson's all about. I mean, he's such a big part of this hockey team and the culture here, and I think he allowed Vince Dunn to become Vince Dunn last year. So I'm pretty bullish on their back end.
Ian, always good to catch up with you, man. I appreciate it. We'll be talking lots hockey. We'll mix in a little NFL. And, hey, Seattle Mariners, quickly give me your thoughts. Who's going to make it? Seattle, Texas, Toronto? Or actually, maybe the better question is, who do you think misses in the AL?
Well, I mean, it's what you said when you came in before you introduced me. It's 4 teams for 3 spots. One of those teams will win the American League West, so then it's 3 teams for 2 spots in the wild card. Toronto obviously is one of those teams, and you know, Seattle and Houston and Seattle and Texas still play each other down the stretch. Next week's gonna be crazy. Seattle's in Texas starting on Friday. That's gonna be a massive series. I feel like Seattle's gonna get in only because their pitching is elite and it's really good. Their offense is just okay, but their pitching is so good that I think that gives them an advantage. Texas seems to be getting healthy at the wrong time for everybody else, and to be honest with you, Houston's kind of playing like Houston again, which is a little bit scary for everybody in the American League. Sorry, Blue Jays. You're the odd ones out. Thanks for coming.
All right, Ian, thanks for that, buddy. Have a good one.
See ya.
That's Ian Furness from KJR in Seattle. The Jays, if you missed it, no Vlad Guerrero tonight. He has knee discomfort. As many of the texters wisely said, maybe it's because he only had 10 hours sleep last night, Connor. We shall see. Might be. Now, and also, we're obviously making the joke about Kikuchi, who said he cramped yesterday because he didn't get his usual 13, 14 hours sleep. He only had 11. And I'm just like, what? That's got to be one of the weirdest reasons why you think you've cramped in my life, is that you only had 11 hours sleep. Like, good for him, man, that he can sleep that long. That's amazing. Like, I think that's a skill. I think that's a skill to be able to sleep from, he says, 11 p.m. till 1 p.m. That's 14 hours. Like, I don't believe it.
It's just a waste of a day.
Yeah, well, I just don't believe it. That means you're only up for 10 hours a day.
Yeah.
And you're playing ball. I'm, you know what? I'm sorry. I'm calling. If that was Box of Lies by Fallon, lie. That's what I'm calling it. Lie. We'll come back with 5 questions on the Jason Gregor Show, presented by PlayAlberta.ca, live in the EWEL studio, EWEL.ca.
Ain't it beautiful? What does excellence mean to you, and how does it impact your decisions? Friends, it's Carrie Dahl, and I know that at Volvo Cars Edmonton, excellence isn't an option, it's their everything. From customer satisfaction in sales, service, inventory, and retention, they excel in all. Congratulations, Volvo Cars Edmonton, Canada's only 12-time Volvo Excellence Award winners.
Volvo of Edmonton. Some things just work together. Sticks and pucks, cleats and AstroTurf. Your love for the game and Papa John's passion for better ingredients, better pizza. Nothing pairs with the game like Papa John's. Crafted with signature sauce, toppings, and original fresh dough. They're the champion of pizza. And now you're the champion of winning deals. Just order at papajohns.ca. Use promo code SPORTS20 and score 20% off any regular menu price order. Better ingredients, better pizza. Papa John's. That's SPORTS20.
We all have regrets in the past, like when you decided to join the football team as the official mascot. With the James Insurance Group, you don't have to look back on past mistakes. You can move forward with confidence without making you do fuzzy cartwheels. The James Insurance Group lets you work with a local broker to get the best coverage that works for you. Working for Albertans across the province, the James Insurance Group will find you the best value and coverage you need. Find us at tjig.ca. That's tjig.ca.
At Toyota, we build quality trucks with you in mind, because everyone loves a friend with a truck, especially a Toyota, winner of the Canadian Black Book Award for Best Residual Value. So when that inevitable ring-a-ding-ding for help comes, you're there, rolling up in an award-winning truck, because you're an award-worthy friend. It's time to lift with your legs. It's time to Toyota. Order a 2023 Tacoma 4x4 Double Cab SR5 starting from $47,650. Price includes additional fees, taxes extra. Visit shoptoyota.ca or your local Prairie Toyota dealer today.
At jackpotcity.net, you can do amazing things with just one casino chip. Discover a world of incredible casino games with over 500 high-quality online slot games, including the world-renowned progressive jackpot slot Mega Moolah. Play for free at jackpotcity.net and get treated as a VIP 24/7. So visit jackpotcity.net today on your tablet, laptop, or mobile. Jackpot City, a whole world of casino games. 18 plus. Please play responsibly. This is not a gambling website.
When it comes to your canola fields, yield is one of your top priorities. To help you maximize it, Invigor Hybrid Canola from BASF offers a full lineup of high-performing hybrids. And new for 2024, every one includes our patented pod shatter reduction technology for unmatched harvest flexibility and exceptional results, which helps take care of your priorities outside the field. Daddy! Talk to your retailer early to book your Invigor seed.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
the breeze.
Good song. Really good song, though. Welcome back to the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440 and live on Oilers Nation YouTube. Stop in, say hi, hit the subscribe button. Keep growing. With 16,500 subscribers. I like it. Let's keep it rolling. Keep it rolling, boys and girls. It's lots of fun. And also give away some tickets on there on Friday's show. Nice. Let's get to 5 questions now. Brought to you by The Brick. As The Brick, this is very rare time at The Brick right now. Twice a year. It's their semi-annual sale. You're getting ridiculous savings, 60% off of sofas. You can get up to $1,000 off select big screen TVs. Get free local shipping on TVs 50 inches or larger. So don't worry if you're like, man, I need it, but I don't have a truck. Well, no worries. The Brick will deliver it for you. It's a great service. The Brick and thebrick.com.
It's time for 5 questions on the Jason Gregor Show.
All right, Gregor, question number 1. Since we've got Charlie Huddy and Doug Weight going into the Oilers Hall of Fame, when you think of their great careers, is there a moment that stands out to you above the rest?
Well, you know what? Honestly, I think the Doug Weight goal off the face-off against the Calgary Flames, right? And then he kind of goes sideways through the defenseman and scores. It's early on. It was a Saturday night, if I'm not mistaken. The place is going bananas. So I think that would be the Doug Weight one. Charlie Huddy. It's hard because, so many Hall of Famers when he played. So I can't honestly tell you one specific play that I recall from Charlie Huddy because, flash wasn't necessarily his calling card. He was very steady. I think it was an underrated how physical and strong Charlie Huddy was. Like, you watched how often Charlie Huddy would pin guys against the wall and they didn't move. Like, Charlie Huddy was ridiculously strong. It's not like one play were like, wow, but you used to see him do it and guys literally couldn't move. So that's kind of what I remember about Huddy.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of miss the heyday of Huddy. Just for me, it's been like getting a chance to talk to him on these shows and having him join the in the past, talking about some of his teammates and all the success they had. Always memorable. For one, Doug Weight, though, I know you had the goal against the Flames. I think that was in one of the NHL video games as well.
Oh, yeah?
But for me, it was a kind of a dirty play on Brian Marchment when he got him with the shot up high. And it was like I think he was defending one of his teammates. It wouldn't surprise me if Marchment had thrown a bit of a questionable hit before.
Well, I thought Marchment had went after Weight earlier in the game, if my memory's correct. And they were former teammates too,
yeah.
Right? But Marchment, man, he was ruthless on the ice.
And go ahead.
And good for Doug Weight, though, for standing up for himself.
Yeah.
But that's a good memory. I do remember that now that you bring it up. I thought it was Marchment kind of went and got his knee earlier in the game. Or the previous game, it was one of the two. We'll have to ask him when we get him on the show.
Yeah, I know Slater's working on that to get that set up shortly here. And yeah, I just remember Doug Weight skating off the ice, just chirping. It was such a good moment and fired up as a young Oilers fan.
Doug Weight was a pretty vocal guy.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, he never met a microphone he didn't like. Doug was great to interview. He's a really chatty guy.
Question number 2 for you. The news broke about Matthias Ekholm's hip injury. Just a little bit delayed here. Any long-term concern for you when it comes to that?
No, it's a hip. It's like a tightness in his hip flexor. I was joking that I remember certain veterans at some training camps when the Elks used to have 2-a-days. And sadly, the vet, geez, Hammy's a little tight right now. Oh, might have to miss a day. I'm not saying Ekholm's doing that, of course. But I'm just saying, honestly, if Matthias Ekholm misses a week right now, I don't think it has any negative effects whatsoever.
Yeah, I think I'm with you. Obviously, Oilers fans probably get a little bit nervous, but hey, this is opportunity for some of the young guys. So I hope they take advantage of it. Question number 3 for you. Brad Marchand being named as the Bruins captain. So I'll ask you this. Who do you think is the best captain in the NHL right now?
Wow. What defines it's really difficult to determine. Like, the best player is obviously Connor McDavid. So does that make him the best captain? Sidney Crosby, of all the captains, has the most Stanley Cups. So would he be the best? Kopitar has 2. He's close. Those would be my top 3. And I don't know. Yeah. Like Crosby today obviously isn't the player he was when he won, but he's still a pretty good leader. So, yeah, I might have to go with Sid on this one. It's hard.
Yeah, you got good ones in there. I'll throw Steven Stamkos in there down in Tampa.
Oh,
I think
yeah.
he's a guy I think quite
Wants a
fit to
contract
leave.
extension, Cons.
Well,
Did you see his comments today?
no. What did he say?
Oh, yeah. It came out like, right. He's just like, hey, I told him I want to be here. I don't have a contract. It's the start of camp. And actually, we'll get to Brisebois' answer because I thought it was Brisebois said, hey, I know how important he is to the organization. We know he wants him here, but you have to understand this season, I need to know, I got to find out some things about our team. And I understand that players want to get signed. I get it. And Stamkos is probably like, geez, man, I had to go right until the end of free agency many years ago. So does he feel disrespected? Maybe. But ultimately, come on. Your contract isn't up. If you don't get a real offer before your contract's up, then you can be upset.
Pay the man. Pay the man. A question number 4. Obviously, we got some tight races in the AL and NL wild card playoff chase. Who are your pick to be the wild card representatives from each league?
Go ahead.
Well, despite what we just heard, I'm going to go with the Blue Jays. I hope it finds a way to happen. I think the Rays will be there as well.
Tampa's already in. They're already secured. So
they're in there.
2 more.
And then I will, just to spite Furness, I'm going to say the Texas Rangers in the AL. And then on the other side, you got the Marlins who are fighting to get in there, but I think it's going to stick around with what it is as it is today. Phillies, Diamondbacks, and the Cubbies. I want the Cubbies to make the playoffs.
Yeah, well, the Phillies I'm not saying they're locked, but they're close to a lock to get in. I'm going to go. The Cubbies they've hit the skids at the wrong time. Right? I think they've only won 3 of their last 10. So I'm going to say Arizona's in. And I want the Cubs to get in. So that means I think the Marlins will get in.
Something about playoff baseball at Wrigley.
And then in the AL, man, I'm very curious about Houston. Like, what's gone wrong with Houston all of a sudden? Like, they're completely tanking at the wrong time. I still think Toronto gets in. Even if, and honestly, Vladdy missing a day or two, that might actually be beneficial for him. So I think Toronto's in, and I actually think Seattle's in.
And a final question for you. Apparently today is National Pepperoni Pizza Day. Typically, for me personally, I don't like to go with just one topping, but
yeah, how can you?
If you had to, one topping pizza from Papa John's, what are you ordering?
Oh my goodness. So I assume we already have cheese on it?
Yeah, cheese is going to count here.
So I only get one topping?
That's it.
I don't think I've ever had a one topping pizza in my life. Like, cheese pizza wasn't a thing when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't think I've ever had like a pepperoni pizza. I guess maybe I have had a pepperoni pizza now that I think about it. So yeah, I guess I'd have to go with, no, you know what? I'm going to go bacon. If I get one topping, I'm going to bacon cheese pizza.
I like that one. Yeah, like I was a cheese pizza guy for a long time, and my friends still will just assume that's what I go for, even though I like to think I have matured and expanded on that one. But if it's not going to be pepperoni, I'll stick with the pig. I'll go ham. Just a ham pizza, I think, would be all right. Preferably green peppers or something on there, but yeah, we'll go with ham. We've got Norman the Combine saying Italian sausage. That could be a good one as well.
Sure.
Still kind of basic though.
Yeah, like honestly, I never even had, usually I would have, like when I was a kid, we had lots of Hawaiian, ham and pineapple, right? And when I had pepperoni, it was always like pepperoni and mushroom or pepperoni, mushroom, fresh tomato. Like I might have had a pepperoni once, but I don't know, one topping pizza, like it's naked. It's just unfulfilling. I wouldn't do it.
Is there too many toppings for you?
Well, yeah, I don't like loaded.
Yeah.
Right? Like, it becomes too much. So I'm like 3 or 4 usually can be good. Depends on the combination of what the toppings are. Now, I've eaten a loaded pizza before, of course, but I just find that, I hate onions. And so usually there's onions in them. So I'm like, meh. But yeah, too many. Like, when you've got 5, 6 toppings, it's almost become, you don't get all the flavor of everything. It's like a mixed bag of flavor that's hard to, it's not like they're all complementing one another. So yeah, I think for me, max is 4. And it's got to be 2 meats if it's 4.
Yeah. Yeah, whatever meat lovers is for me, like ham, bacon.
Oh yeah. And it varies from different places.
Yeah, that does it for me.
Oh, yeah. It's always a good one. I like it.
Hopefully we'll see some of those at the Pizza Pig Out.
Yeah. Oh, speaking of the Pizza Pig Out, we also now have it's official. We're going to have a watch. So the Pizza Pig Out is going on February 11th. It's a Wednesday at 6 o'clock at Molson House, back where it all started. This will be our 5th annual. It's amazing that we're able to keep it. It's growing. It's bigger. Swift's now a big sponsor of it, which is awesome. If you've never been to the Pizza Pig Out, there's going to be over 20, 25 pizzerias in, and you get to try all the different pizzas. Now, the last few years, because of COVID, we had it as a drive-in. So people would show up in their cars. There wasn't a lot of socializing, and you would get 3 or 4 boxes of pizza, which was great, but not a lot of flavors. Now we're going to have table after table, and you come in, and some pizzerias will bring 6 different types of pizza. And we're going to have, so honestly, there's close to, when you consider there's 25, and some of them are bringing a minimum 3 different types because they like to showcase different ones. There's so many different pizzas to try. It's amazing. So you can go to Jason Gregor, pizzapigout.com. That's a website. Get your tickets. It's from 6 to 8. It's in Molson House. We'll have some beverages there. And then, if you want, you don't have to, but we're having a watch party for the season opener at the Ice House. We've got some reservations there. Big thanks to Megan for setting that up. So pizza, kids sport, and Oilers season opener. Pretty good. So if you want to get in, go to Jason Gregor, pizzapigout.com. Tickets are going fast. I love it. And it's loads of fun. If you've gone in the past, if you remember 5 years ago, it's great. We'll have a little fun. There'll be a pizza eating contest to see who can crush it. I'm not in it. I would never win that. I'm not good at that. But there's some fiery competitors, I'll tell you that. So I look forward to that. Let's get to Connor Halley and a Sports Center update brought to you by Edmonton Kubota. Like you, they're super happy to have Sports Talk Radio back. So happy, in fact, that they're having a great deal right now. 0% financing for 84 months on all compact BX tractors that are in stock. Shop online at edmontonkubota.com. Here's Connor Halley.
Edmonton Oilers defenseman Matthias Ekholm is dealing with a minor hip flexor injury and may take a few days before he gets going at training camp. The Oilers preseason officially gets going on Sunday, 4 o'clock, when they host the Winnipeg Jets. The Toronto Blue Jays in action tonight, taking on the New York Yankees once again. We're about 5 minutes away from first pitch in that one. Busy afternoon. Finals for you. Phillies get past the Braves 6-5. Twins over the Reds 5-3. The Nationals beating up on the White Sox 13-3. Rangers doing the same to the Red Sox 15-5. The Astros doubled up the Orioles 2-1. Guardians fell to the Royals 6-2. Mariners beat the Athletics 6-3. Diamondbacks over the Giants 7-1. And the Rockies falling to the Padres 3-2. Still to come tonight, the Pirates in Chicago taking on the Cubbies. Cards host the Brewers, and the Tigers take on the Dodgers. Right now, Angels leading the Rays 2-0 in the second. Also in the second, scoreless between the Mets and the Marlins. According to reports, the LA Rams are sending running back Cam Akers to the Minnesota Vikings for a swap of the 2026 draft picks. Vikings head coach Kevin O'Connell is Akers' offensive coordinator with the Rams for 2 seasons. And just one game in the AJ tonight, Sherwood Park traveling to Lloyd to take on the Bobcats. That one gets going at 7. Coming up in hour 4 of the Jason Gregor Show, we'll be joined by Sportsnet's Mark Spector and 5-time Stanley Cup champ and newly inducted Edmonton Oilers Hall of Famer Charlie Huddy.
McCafe now has cold brew beverages, and they're smooth. Made with 100% Arabica beans, steeped cold and slow for an irresistibly smooth taste. McCafe cold brew beverages, for a limited time only at participating McDonald's.
You've got a go-to coffee spot, a trusted barber, even a lucky game day jersey. But when it's about looking your absolute best, there's only one name you need. Mr. Dirk. Family run since 1939, we're experts in crafting impeccable tailor-made suits and offering a wide variety of everyday styles. Pair that with personalized one-on-one fittings and the convenience of on-site tailoring. Mr. Dirk elevates your style game. Visit our Edmonton store or explore MrDirk.com. Score big on style with Mr. Dirk.
How exciting is it to have Sports Talk Radio back in Edmonton?
Tie game, bottom of the ninth with a full count. The kick, the pitch. It's high, it's far, it is gone! Walk-off home run!
Yeah, it's pretty much like that. Edmonton Kubota is excited to welcome back Sports Talk Radio, Sports 1440. We'll be dialed in for every minute. Get it done, and then some at Edmonton Kubota. All compact BX tractors on sale with 0% financing for 84 months. Stop by on 128th Ave or visit edmontonkubota.com.
PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated gambling website, features a variety of responsible gambling tools such as a time clock, deposit limits, and more. Remember, if you gamble, use your game sense. Visit GameSenseAB.ca to find out more.
The job isn't done until the last load is hauled, and having a semi-trailer out of commission is not an option. Whether replacing or adding to your convoy, Edmonton Trailer has a huge inventory of new and used semi-trailers, trusted by the gravel, logging, oil field, fluids, and freight industries. Find a trailer right for you online or at one of their 3 locations. For sales, service, parts, rental, and finance, when you're in it for the long haul, Edmonton Trailer.
What's cracking at Cattail Crossing Golf and Winter Club? Kick off your week with unbeatable savings. Enjoy half-price golf from Monday to Thursday. Elevate your game without emptying your wallet. Book your tee time today. CattailCrossing.ca.
Sports 1440 in West Edmonton Mall and Wetaskiwin. CKJR is a Stingray radio station.
Download the free Radio Player app and listen wherever you go.
Well, no one told me about her, the way she lied. Well, no one told me about her.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
Trying to find her, she's not there. Well, let me tell you about the way she looked, the way she had hair, the color of her hair.
Yes. Welcome back to the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440, streaming online, sports1440.ca. If you got the app, if somewhere you're driving and maybe it gets a little staticky at times, download the Stingray or iHeart or Radio Player app on your phone. It's free. And then I can get you through those little staticky spots. No problem. And of course, you can watch the show live anywhere on YouTube. You can't really watch it when you're driving. That's not safe. But at home in the office, great. Get on. Maybe you're in the passenger seat. Put her on. You want to see it to believe it. Oilers Nation YouTube. And hit the subscribe button. And you can get tickets. Because we're giving some away on Friday. So you better get in there before Friday. Oilers Nation YouTube. Hit the subscribe button. Texts keep flying in our Jiffy Lube inbox, 833-401-1440. Hey, guys, I had a buddy who would go triple pepperoni. So if it's triple pepperoni, I guess that's a lot of meat. But it's still all the same flavor. But it's pretty good. I like it. Hey, Greg's, I tried ranch as my sauce. It was a game changer for sure. Glad you mentioned it. Well, thank you. I don't know a lot. But sometimes I know certain things. I can't really eat the tomato sauce as much anymore. It kind of sucks. But so I get ranch, or I've tried pesto lately. Ooh. If you're just looking for a little flavor change, something to spice it up for you, try it. The ranch or the pesto at Papa John's, very good. Very good. Let's get to the spec report now, brought to you by GS Construction. Fantastic companies set to celebrate 50 years, and they're hiring. You want to work for a great company that got an awesome culture and they love sports. Right up your alley. Go to Indeed.com and look up GS Construction. Mark Spector from Roger Sportsnet joins us once again. Spec, how you doing?
Oh, man, I'm getting hungry hearing about all this pizza, Jay. Let's get this over with so I can go for a wheel.
Nice. Day one today, both of the goalies spoke today, and it's interesting kind of, I love what Stuart Skinner said, hey, about pressure goes, well, it depends how much pressure I want to put on myself, which I don't want to do. And that makes sense, right? Like he's a young guy coming in second year. Jack Campbell's, if I was Jack Campbell, I know there's a lot of people in Edmonton that feel, oh my God, he's never going to be good. But if you look at his previous 4 years at a .916 save percentage combined over 4 years, that's really good. I'm not even saying he has to be .916 because there's more goals now, but I don't think it's crazy to think Jack Campbell can bounce back and be a .905 to .908 save percentage goalie.
No, absolutely not. It's kind of funny. I thought this morning when you have the young guy who seems to have a very calm, zen out mental approach, like Stu Skinner. When you listen to what he's saying, that's what I want to hear from a goalie, right? He is not, he doesn't dig into things too deep. He's not too freaked out mentally. He's really calm. He says the right things. And the old guy, Jack Campbell, turns, I think, 32 in January. He's the one who admits today on the podium that he's working on his mental game. And here he is, 32 years old, still trying to figure it out, between the ears a little bit. So it is funny. The old guys kind of could take a lesson from the young guy on this one, Jay.
Well, it was interesting. I remember having a long conversation with Darnell Nurse. We're talking about lots of things, not necessarily hockey. And it got on the topic of Stuart Skinner, and he kind of joked. He's like Stu's a rookie. And he joked, he goes, but I think he's more mentally mature than a lot of us. Like that's kind of his thing. And he's really into lots of reading about mental toughness. Like that's a real thing that Stuart Skinner spends a lot of time listening to podcasts, talking about things you can control and really focusing on not wasting energy, because you can get mentally tired and sometimes you can twist yourself in a pretzel like maybe Jack Campbell did at times. So I think Skinner has that going for him. And now that's easy when things are going well. It becomes a lot more challenging when things start going wrong.
Well, I think you put it in place for when things start going wrong, right? The goaltending position is as Ken Holland said today rather eloquently, when a forward makes a mistake, the big red light doesn't go on. And when a defenseman makes a mistake, it's not every time the big red light goes on. But when the goalie messes up, the big red light goes on and the fans start screaming. And, there's something to deal with here mentally. It's never good. So, listen, it's easy to be mentally tough and forget the goals that went in when you're only letting in one a night. It's the old Grant Fuhr syndrome, right? Beat somebody 6-5. In the end, you got the win. And don't worry about the last goal. Like no one forgot a goal quicker than Grant Fuhr. That's where Campbell is, and he admitted it today. He says, I gotta sort of move on from each goal rather than lose a week's sleep over it. That is just not a healthy way to live when you're an NHL goalie. You got to have a short memory, man, because listen, goals are going in. No one gets a shutout every night. Goals are going in. You got to learn how to deal with them. And that's been something Jack Campbell said today. He's battled with his whole career, and the battle still wages, my friend.
Tomorrow is the first on-ice session for the Edmonton Oilers. We know that Sam Gagner won't be taking part in any of the preseason games. Connor Brown, is going to be limited in when he plays, which makes me think the lines you see, because I know people always want to jump the gun on lines in camp, and I'm not one who does it anymore because I've learned my lesson after a while. But, I do wonder kind of what experiments we'll see from Jay Woodcroft. He kind of knows what he has, and I don't think he has to put his lines together on day one because it's like, oh, we got to get these guys together. So I really don't see that happening. But I don't know why I spec, but I wonder, is Dylan Holloway going to be slotted at center for a game or two? Or, is Fogle going to be up in the top six to start because Connor Brown might not be ready for the first few preseason games? I'm kind of intrigued to see those little type of things tomorrow.
Yeah, those are the ones, and he's certainly got 8 games to fool around here with.
Yes.
It's unbelievable. It's sort of reminiscent of the NFL where they play 4, preseason games, and some of the top players don't even get a snap, which, we can talk about that all day. It seems kind of crazy, but you got 8 games here to figure out 3 spots on the Edmonton Oilers, maybe 2, so that's a lot of hockey to make a couple little decisions. So sure, Woodcroft's got to use that time to figure out a few other things. No question. Here, what do we know? I think we know that on left wing, I think we know that Kane and McDavid are a pair and Nugent Hopkins and Draisaitl are a pair. Do we know that? Do you think?
Well, Nugent Hopkins, for whatever reason, has played better with Leon Draisaitl. And, there's lots of reasons we could look at it. Is it because when he plays with Draisaitl, he doesn't have the toughest matchup? Because when you play with McDavid, usually you get the toughest matchup. So maybe that's it. But, yeah, I would think that might be a safe assumption to start, Spec. Sure. That Nugent Hopkins starts with Draisaitl and Kane starts with McDavid. And then, Hyman, Brown, whoever else rotates.
Now we got to figure out who's on the right side of those top two lines. It's going to be Hyman and it's going to be Brown. So now who plays with who? Hyman can play with anybody. What a good player Hyman is. He just plays on either wing with any guy, and he's always good, right? Holy man, talk about a valuable guy. Connor Brown, let's see what happens with Connor Brown. We're going to watch him and learn and see the player and see, how he's coming off a big injury, man. It was a long time ago, like almost a calendar year, but it was a big injury. So let's see what happens there. Do you want to get your third line guys gelling together right off the top? Do you need Fogle and Holloway and McLeod playing together right in the preseason? Or can you just experiment for a while and get to that later? I guess we're going to see what Woodcroft does, but he's got a lot of guys in camp, man. He's got a lot of machinations here that he can bounce around through, doesn't he?
Well, to me, I think it's the one advantage of having the 8 preseason games is he's going to be able to give the guys who are really competing for those last 1, maybe 2 roster spots amongst the forwards. They're going to get a lot of time. Sam Gagner, now you take him out of the mix. So Adam Ernie, Raphael Lavoie, Sutter, Peterson, go down the list of guys. Drake Kajula thinks he should probably maybe be in the mix. Brad Malone. So, those guys will get, I think, a fair amount of game spec. And, I remember last year, and coaches are smart. Guys know who's competing for jobs. That Winnipeg road game on Monday spec, lots of times, that's where you're going to see those guys. They go on the road. It's a little bit harder. You're playing a better lineup usually. The home team normally ices a little bit better of a lineup. And I think that, we could see a healthy competition because guys are competing for jobs and coaches like to put those guys in the same games if they can. Not always, but lots of times.
No, I get you, man. That's a fair assessment, right? I want to see how Adam Ernie looks against a good lineup, not at home against a bunch of AHL players. That doesn't do much for me. Brandon Sutter, it was funny. I asked Ken Holland today about Brandon Sutter, and he basically said what you and I have been talking about on this show for a week. If he's anything close to the Brandon Sutter that he was when he was, 30 years old, 29 years old, Ken Holland said today he's exactly what we need. So I think our statement that, if he's right and if he's something like the Brandon Sutter we know, the job is his. Ken Holland pretty much put a stamp on that today. So now we get to see, and I don't want to see Brandon Sutter pushing around a bunch of college kids. I want to see him playing in a road game. I want to see him playing against Scheifele. And I want to see him playing against Kyle Connor and, the real players in Winnipeg. So I'm sure he'll get the tougher assignments. And let's face it, that's the way the game works. The guys that, Leon and McDavid, they'll get the home games, and the home games usually come against a little, lesser opposing lineup. I don't care what Connor McDavid does in the preseason, Jay, or Leon Draisaitl, or about 10 or 15 other guys here. It doesn't matter to me as long as they're getting in shape and ready for the first game in Vancouver.
One last one, Spec, Charlie Huddy, Doug Waite, 2 very worthy recipients of a big honor. They will be going up on October 26th. It's a Thursday. The Oilers host the New York Rangers on the Oilers Wall of Fame.
Yeah, who argues with any of those, right? Charlie Huddy is on a team full of superstars. He wasn't a superstar, but he did play in Canada, in at least one Canada Cup. And, we watched this in Edmonton, Jay. Just because you have superstars doesn't mean you'll win. The Oilers aren't winning any cups yet unless I miss something. It's guys, you need the Charlie Huddys on those teams. So he's absolutely 1,000% should be on that wall of honor. And then if we go to a new era guy, and now that Ryan Smith is up there, I mean, you're on the committee, so I'm probably telling you stuff you know already, but there isn't an Oiler fan out there who, after Ryan Smith, if you're picking from players, non-glory years players, it's Dougie Wade all day long. Now that there's going to be some debates coming in here, there's Ales Hemsky, there's Billy Guerins, there's a bunch of guys, we're going to talk this out. But it went for my money all day long. It went Ryan Smith, then Doug Waite, and then everybody else. How about you?
Yeah, I think that's fair. I think they're, that's legitimately fair. Bill Radford's kind of unique because he was there at the end of a cup. It was a Conn Smythe Trophy winner. Yep. And then he was here during the dog years. And really, Bill Radford was the only reason Oiler fans went to the games in 93 and 94. Him and Kelly Buchberger, right?
Well, he won the Conn Smythe. Bucky's another guy. Bucky's got to be up there. Come on. Golly, Buckberger, are you kidding me? He's going up there one day.
Yeah, he could be. Spec, enjoy tonight. Enjoy the baseball, man. Some interesting games. Vladdy's out, so we'll see how the Elks handle it.
Yeah, I don't like the fact that Vladdy's out. He loves that ballpark. I don't think he had any hits last night, but he likes that park. I like watching him play there. So, yeah, let's watch a little ball tonight and go Jays.
There you go. That's Mark Spector from Rogers Sportsnet, brought to you by GS Construction. When we come back, Charlie Huddy is going to be joining us in about 15 minutes time. Talk about his huge honor. That's a big deal, man. That's a big deal for someone. You get to, your name is going to be up there forever. That's a fantastic honor. So we'll hear from Charlie. Get some of your text at 833-401-1440.
PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated gambling website, features a variety of responsible gambling tools such as a time clock, deposit limits, and more. Remember, if you gamble, use your game sense. Visit GameSenseAB.ca to find out more.
Ain't it beautiful? The inventory is unprecedented. Volvo Cars Edmonton is proud to boast an amazing selection of in-stock Volvo XC40s, 60s, and 90s. Visit Volvo Cars Edmonton today and experience the exemplary service you've come to expect and the affordable luxury only found with Volvo Cars Edmonton, Canada's only 12-time Volvo Excellence Award winners. Experience the difference.
Volvo of Edmonton.
Thinking about solar power? Action Electrical wants to eliminate your entire home or
is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
We return to the Wednesday edition of the Jason Gregor Show. Coming up tomorrow, we will have lots of coverage from day one on the ice for the Oilers. They'll be on the ice tomorrow, Friday. And then Saturday, remember, Saturday is fan day. If you and anyone in your family wants to go watch it, it is open to the public. They'll be on the ice from 10 until 1. The scrimmage is at 11 o'clock. So that's the prime time, but you can get there early. And, of course, there'll be seats available. First come, first serve. Concessions will be open as well. And it'll be your opportunity. So when they have the scrimmage, pretty much everyone's involved. So you have the opportunity to see the, your favorite players in action. And I know for some kids and for some people, that's one of the rare times you can sit that close in the lower bowl. It's pretty fun. So that is again on Saturday afternoon. I guess late morning. Excuse me. Scrimmage is at 1. So you want to get there. Doesn't open until 10, so don't get there before then because they won't be open the doors. So show up at 10, 10:15. You might want to watch some of the early drills, I guess, but then they will be on the ice at 11 o'clock. 833-401-1440 is the number you can text in. Got lots more text flying in. Hey, Gregor, everybody talks about the obvious ones. Is there anybody you think is a surprise candidate this year to make the team? You know what, Dan? Honestly, would Lane Peterson be a surprise? I think maybe he's been overlooked. So I would probably have to say if I was picking anyone, it would be him. Because I think a lot of people have been like, hey, Brandon Sutter. And I understand that. Right? Raphael Lavoie. Totally get it. But if I'm looking at a surprise guy, then that's him. I don't see Bourgault. I don't see Tullio. I don't see Savoy. I don't see Petrov. Drake Kajula, that'd be a surprise too, for me anyway. And I don't see it. The Oilers have a lot of left wingers. Hey, Gregor, I haven't heard much about Holloway. Do you think there's a chance they would start him in the minors because he doesn't need waivers? Well, if he's one of your best 12 forwards, then no. But if for whatever reason he doesn't blow the doors off in preseason, yeah, that is the one thing that's an advantage. Hey, not that I think most of the guys like Raphael Lavoie would have people, maybe they'll claim him on waivers. No offense to Lane Peterson. I don't know if there would be the same angst amongst fans or the organization if someone claimed him. Right? I'll tell you about the mindset of organizations. There's not the time invested in Lane Peterson. He was with another organization. You sign him as a free agent. Yeah, you want him to work out, but if it doesn't, you're like, okay, you move on. Whereas if you have a draft pick and you've developed him in the minors for a few years, then all of a sudden you lose him on waivers, you're like, what? Yeah, you're going to have some people in development, guys, and saying, hey, what are we doing? So there's a little bit more angst in that regard. But there's not a ton of it when it comes to guys like Lane Peterson. So I guess that's how I'd put it. Let's get to the fantasy report now, brought to you by Next Gen Transportation, heavy haul transport provider, 100% locally owned and operated. Hey, big shout out. Evo McEwen's down at the bobsled trials. I'd like to give him lots of joke, but you know what, dude? Pretty strong dude. So best of luck at that. That's nextgentransportation.com. Today, Cam Akers was traded to the Minnesota Vikings, which, A, do you think Akers is going to do anything in Minnesota? And B, what does this mean to Madison? Connor Halley?
Well, I hope it motivates him. I hope it gets him to focus a little harder on film and work a little harder in the training room. That's coming from a guy who has Madison in both his leagues and hope it starts to work out for him. I don't know. Cam Akers, there's a reason they're trading him, right? You're not trading away.
Well, he hasn't wanted to be there, though, right?
Yeah, that's certainly part of it. But he's had injury issues. The most in his career that he's played in a single season, or started at least, is 9 games. He finished 2022 pretty strong. Had a couple games that he finished with over 100 yards rushing. He's got speed. He was great at Florida State, taken in the second round for a reason. But I think it'll take a little bit of time. Now, the good thing for Akers is that the head coach there, O'Connell, was his OC for 2 years with the Rams. So it should be about as smooth as a transition as you can ask for. I don't know if he'll be able to get right in there against the Chargers this weekend. If he is, he'll probably go for a couple 100 yards or something like that. But I think it's a move they had to make. Alex Madison just hasn't been good enough for the fantasy players and for the real football fans as well. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes and gives them kind of a two-headed monster there.
There's a few players I saw that were rather popular on the waiver wire. One being Rashid Shaheed, the wide receiver in New Orleans.
Yeah,
he's had 2 pretty good weeks. He's still got he's not the number one guy there. What do you make of him as far as being sustainable?
It's tough, right? Because, the more he makes plays, the more attention he's going to get from opposing defenses. But Chris Olave is the number one there. They've got Michael Thomas, who I think still garners a little bit of attention. So I think he's still going to get in there and have a chance to make his plays, almost similar to Jordan Addison with the Minnesota Vikings, where, it doesn't take much. He doesn't need to be targeted 10 plus times. It can be, 3, 4, 5. And if one of those plays hits and you get a big touchdown, then he could be worth a start. So, I mean, it would have to be in a league where there's a lot of teams and you're looking for depth there to make him a permanent starter. But I think that he's still going to make his plays and get those opportunities. And Derek Carr, I mean, the accuracy's not always there, but he does like to push the ball downfield. So you'd think he'll get his chances.
A few other ones. Are you buying the, I don't know if it's a resurgence, but Zach Ertz early on as a tight end? Like, there's not a lot of tight ends out there. But if you look at Zach Ertz and the amount of targets, the amount of catches he's getting, it's working. Now, Kyler Murray's getting close to coming back. How do you think that impacts it?
Well, I mean, and I wonder, because we heard for a while that Kyler might be shut down for the season, because if he does come back and get injured again, the Cardinals, are on the hook for a lot of money. So, yeah, I mean.
But are you going to sit out a guy just because of that?
Well, I mean, if Caleb Williams could be, I don't know. I don't think he would. I feel like he want to get him out there.
That would be a pretty loser mentality, in my opinion.
It would be. I think so, because when you look at the Cardinals, like Hollywood Brown, I don't think he's ever really been a guy that you can rely on to go for 10 or 12 receptions in a game. Zach Ertz can be that guy and can be highly targeted, especially if it is going to be Joshua Dobbs continuing as the starter for a few more weeks. I think he's a great option to start at tight end, because as we know, the tight end is always a great security blanket for a quarterback who's new to an offense or is new to the league. They tend to get a lot of looks, kind of the safe targets underneath. And especially if you're playing in a PPR league, I think Zach Ertz can be a guy who you could probably count on. I won't lie, I looked at him last night. I'm still debating bringing on to the squad here.
What about Josh Reynolds? Are you buying Josh Reynolds in Detroit, or is that just a 1 week off?
I think so. We had Declan Kruger and Gavin Turnick on the little roundtable on Fantasy Frenzy yesterday talking about potential waiver wire pickups, and they were both very high on Reynolds. He's been around the league for a long time, and it's kind of been spot duty in the past. But with a suspension to Jameson Williams out in Detroit, he's been a guy who has stepped up in the wide receiver 2 spot. Obviously, St. Brown's going to get a lot of the coverage there, and Reynolds has been capitalizing. He's got a good quarterback in Jared Goff, who's finding him in good places. So I would say use him, keep him on the team until week 6 when Jameson Williams get back. Then maybe you put on the bench and stash him and see how Williams plays and what that role is in the offense. But for the next couple of weeks, I think he's a great target to have.
You look at Houston, they got a few receivers. Do you like any of them? Like, is Robert Woods just like he's a bye week option type of guy, or do you think he's potentially become a regular?
I mean, he certainly is an option. I know there's a lot of people who are high on Tank Dell, who, kind of burst onto the scene, had a big game in 10 receptions for 14 targets. He's a guy going up against the Jacksonville Jaguars, who they're probably going to be putting up points. So Tank Dell, I think, could be a guy that, if CJ Stroud needs to start pushing the ball downfield, if they're trailing, could put up some points there. I don't mind Robert Woods. I mean, he was a good receiver for the Rams. He's 31 years old now. I don't know if he's going to be counted on too heavily, but like I said, if you're struggling, you need that depth piece. There's probably worse options you could go after. But I don't know if he'd be the top of my list. I might take a look at Tank Dell, the rookie, see what he can do.
Okay, that's now I'm trying to think. There was one other one I wanted to ask you about. Who was it? I know a few people. Latavius Murray. Like, he's been around forever, right? Like, I don't know. At this point, him and Ezekiel Elliott, Matt Breida, are they all the same guy, different name?
I mean, Latavius Murray to me is the funniest guy, because he'll show up on a Thursday, get into the game in a red zone opportunity and score a touchdown. Like, he seems like he's just always scoring touchdowns. He's got 56 in his career. Like, he finds a way to get into the end zone. So, yeah, I mean, I don't know if he's someone you necessarily want to throw in there as your RB1, your RB2. Maybe if you're desperate, you're putting him in that flex spot. But James Cook, he's getting the bulk of the carries. I think I saw somewhere that James Cook was the 12th rated running back in fantasy points, but he has not scored a touchdown yet. So Cook's doing everything except for getting into the end zone, whereas Latavius Murray, he always finds his way into great opportunities. So, yeah, I don't know if I would count on that necessarily. At some point, James Cook's going to find his way into the end zone, and I think the Latavius Murray touchdown steal or thievery will stop.
That's a fantasy report brought to you by Next Gen Transportation. Lots more text flying in. Of course, a few comments coming up on the YouTube channel. Go there for Oilers Nation. Hey, guys, what's your thoughts, though, on the Browns running back situation? It's a good question. I just think they're going to go with Jerome Ford to start, right? Lots of people were behind him when the season began, and that's what they're going to do. So that's brutal to see for Nick Chubb. It was obviously a terrible injury, considering it's the same knee he ripped up 6-7 years ago. So, he's out. That's going to be like a full year. I'm very curious to see, do the Browns do the right thing, Connor, or do they do the business decision and just cut him at the end of the year? What do you think they do with Nick Chubb?
You're right. It would be the good thing versus the business decision. I think probably goes to the rehab. He's been through this before with a pretty substantial injury a couple of years ago. The scary part is that it is the same leg. So you have to worry about what that rehab process is going to be like. I would assume they bring him back to camp, obviously, next year and see how he's looking, if he's ready by then, because it's going to be a pretty substantial rehab process. And it's a cutthroat business. Nick Chubb's had a lot of good football in his career, but if he can't go, I think they'll make that hard decision. It's not for long, for a reason. As for the current situation, they kept Jerome Ford and didn't re-sign Kareem Hunt for a reason this past offseason. I think Ford for the next couple of weeks for sure will get the bulk of the carries.
As he should. You got to give the guy, you got to find out if he got anything here.
And he was good. He was good on Monday night. So I think certainly he's going to get the bulk of the carries. Maybe Kareem Hunt gets spot duty. He's not going to be in football shape. I don't care what you say. You can do the best offseason training as possible. You're not going to be ready to go out there and carry the rock 20 times in your first game when you're being signed on a Wednesday. So, yeah, Jerome Ford, stick with him.
Yeah, well, no, that's probably fair. But maybe you can get in for 7 or 8 carries first time.
It could be Latavius Murray on the 2-yard line.
There you go. When we come back, the newest member of the Oilers Hall of Fame, Charlie Huddy, will join us on Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440, brought to you by PlayAlberta.ca.
Legacy Heating and Cooling.
Sports Radio is back. The Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440.
Presented by PlayAlberta.ca, Alberta's only regulated online gambling website.
We continue on. Edmonton Sports Center, TSN 1260. Jason Gregor, Connor Halley, Declan Kruger with you. Very special guest today. We get to the Chronicles, brought to you by Action Electrical. Family-run business for over 50 years. They actually just celebrated their 50th anniversary. Quite the accomplishment for a local business. And if you're looking for great service, company with fantastic morals, excellent service, go to actionelectrical.net. And our next guest, I'm guessing his phone had a lot of action today and in the upcoming days, because earlier this morning it was announced that Charlie Huddy, along with Doug Waite, will be going into the Oilers Hall of Fame. The ceremony will be on the 26th of October before the Oilers play the New York Rangers. And Charlie Huddy, one of 7 Edmonton players who was on all 5 Stanley Cup winning teams, joins us now. Charlie, congratulations, my man. Tell me who gave you the call that you were going in? Was it Gretz?
He kind of gave me a little indication for the one day, but actually Kevin called me the other day and gave me the news, and it was as you can expect, it was a great phone call.
Yeah, I would think so. And so since the announcements come out, I just got to think of, how many of your former teammates and friends and, people from, you've been in the NHL a long time, Charlie, lots of players you've coached, I'm guessing, because I know you had a huge impact for a lot of defensemen. So I guess kind of take me back to, for people that, a little bit younger, maybe, who don't understand kind of how Charlie Huddy came about to being an Edmonton Oiler back in the 1980-81 season.
You know what? I played in the minors for a little bit. I never got drafted, so that was kind of a disappointing thing for, at that particular time when the day of the draft. It was different way back then. It was just you basically were at home and they would call you, and I never got a call, obviously. So that part was a little disappointing, but now that I look back at it, it ended up obviously working out great. I mean, I had 3 or 4 teams that had offered me, a contract. So, you know what, we chose Edmonton, and it just, things worked out. And I knew I was going to spend some time in the minors. I had to get my game, and hoping someday there would be a chance to get to the NHL. You just go down there and you just work hard. And I was fortunate to, not the first year we were in Houston in the Central League, but then after that down in Wichita in the Central League also. But John Muckler was down there as our coach, and he really, he really helped me along a lot. He had a lot of good, a lot of good information, and his job down there was to try to get guys to the NHL. I mean, that's what coaches in the minors do. That's how they get honored by doing that. And he did a great job. He put a lot of hard work in it. Real smart hockey man to get me up to the NHL. And from then on, you need a little bit of luck, and I got some.
Charlie Huddy joined us. So, Charlie, you played in Houston in 1980. Then you signed that summer with the Oilers organization. You were in Wichita, but you did get into 12 NHL games that year. Then the next season, you were kind of half and half, 32 games in Wichita. Then you came up to Edmonton in 81 and 82, and obviously never looked back after that. But tell me that 80-81 season, in those 12 games, kind of what you learned and maybe what your impressions of like obviously there were some pretty young stars, Gretzky, Curry, Messier, Glenn Anderson were all on that team. And like, did you have an inkling right away in 12 games that, oh my goodness, this is special, or did it take a while for you?
I think you get it right away. Like when you get out on the ice with those guys and you see the skill that they had. And the thing was that, and it's just, it's what Muck tried to teach us down there, because Muck had been in the AHL before. He said it's when you get there, it's amazing how hard these guys work all the time. And then when I got to practice and stuff like that, you know what, even those guys were highly skilled and great players. They came and they worked hard every day in practice. And that was the thing that I was impressed about. And then, you know what, just make you feel a part of the team right away. But yeah, you know what, it didn't take long. You could see that they had the skill and what it was going to take to be NHL players. And the other thing is, like we've always talked about, games and during practices, and you know, we were flying commercial back then and stuff like that. It really was a family. Like those guys got along real well, and I was just kind of tippy-toeing around trying to fit in, but they made you feel like a part of the team. But yeah, I guess to answer it, yeah, you could feel it right away once you got in there and got on the ice with them, and then obviously in the dressing room.
So in 82, 83, now you're a regular Oiler, and really kind of at the end of the 81, 82 season. Is that when you and Paul got paired together? Was it right away, or did it kind of just morph into that? Because you guys were obviously an outstanding pairing for a long time.
Yeah, I think it just kind of got to that. I mean, Slats would always mix guys around, and for whatever reason, it just worked with us. You know, I was playing my offside. I was shot left, and I played the right side, which I really liked. And I just, for whatever reason, the two of us just kind of gelled together. But you know, like I was married and had a couple of young kids, and Koff was, I think he was living with Yari at that time. But you know what, it was, we'd have Koff over for dinner all the time. He'd come and hang out with the kids and then sit on the couch and fall asleep, and then he'd go home. So I guess my point to it was that, you know what, I think having the relationship off the ice and hanging out together and doing stuff like that. And I know it sounds, but we used to talk about games and talk a little bit of hockey when he'd come over and stuff like that. And I really think that really helped us on the ice. Like it really did. We kind of had a real feel for each other. You know, I knew where he was going to be, and you know, he knew where I was going to be most of the time. And I think it just worked, and it worked for quite a while.
What did you like about playing your offside as a defenseman?
You know what, there was a lot of good on it. I mean, I think in the offensive zone it was good. I was able to keep a lot of pucks in that came around the boards, because you didn't, when you're on your proper side, you just kind of put your stick over and you kind of get your body there, but it can bounce over. When you're on the other side, you got to get your whole body over there. So you're able to keep a lot of pucks in. And then the other thing was, when it came back to the blue line, you're always on your forehand, you know, walking across the blue line. Yeah. You could get your shot through quicker, and it was hard for that forward to come out. You know, it was harder for him to get into the shooting lane, you know, because it was maybe one more step and you get him out of it. And I think that was the big thing. But even defending the rush, you know, when forwards were coming down, you had your stick on the outside of the play, so you could kind of push that forward wide when he was carrying the puck, you know, and guide him into an area where he really didn't want to go. So I think those were the two big things for me. I just for whatever reason, I got to it and pretty much played it my whole time. I remember going to LA, and I had Barry Melrose was coaching there, and he said, "You're going to play the left side for a bit." And I was just like, "Oh my God!" Like I got out there, and I was just like, it was like I was learning how to skate all over again. I mean, because you get used to turning one way when you're playing the right side and doing everything from there, and then I got on the left side. It was just it took me a lot of games to get to kind of get going on that left side.
Charlie Huddy joins us, newest member of the Oilers Hall of Fame. He will be officially inducted on Thursday, October 26th, along with Doug Waite, prior to the Oilers Rangers game. It is the Jason Gregor Show on Sports 1440. And Charlie, you had the great success in Edmonton, and then some good things had to come to an end. You'd seen Gretzky go, and then Grant Fuhr and others, and then yourself left after the 91 season. Although you did reconnect in LA, and Gretzky was there, and Yari Curry eventually came, and so it was kind of nice. But then the last few years of your career in Buffalo and St. Louis, tell me about how that was there. You're playing in the East now. You hadn't played a ton of games against Eastern teams. It was later. How are those final few years of your career?
You know what? They were good. It was a good experience. I mean, I learned that when you get out in the East, you don't travel very much. And usually, if you're not on a road trip, if you're just playing a single game, you're usually home and in bed by, 1 o'clock.
Yeah.
when you go on a 1 game, you go in the night before and you play the game. And when I was in Buffalo, I'd be home, like I said, 1 o'clock, 1:30, be back in bed. So those guys, so the travel was when people talk about, obviously the travel playing a big part of it, it's definitely way easier in the East that I found for the short period of time that I was there. But I enjoyed my time in Buffalo. I got to play with a bunch of different players, and John Muckler was a general manager there, so he had brought me in, and it was good. I enjoyed it, and then I moved on to right at the trade deadline to St. Louis, and hooked back up with those guys. Mac T was there, and Wayne was there, and Furzy was there. Glennie Anderson was there. So it was good to get back with those guys. And unfortunately, we lost to Detroit in double overtime in Game 7. But you know what? It was fun. I enjoyed it, getting out in the East and playing against some different teams that you don't, like you said, that you only saw once a year or twice a year. Or twice a year. So it was good. I enjoyed it.
So Charlie, you look at all that time, and then you got into coaching, and you know what? Lots of defensemen I've talked to that have worked with you, really appreciate it. And you talked about John Muckler at the start. Were you thinking of coaching while you played? Was it something you got into later on? And why do you think you were a good coach? Because lots of young defensemen tell me, man, Charlie Huddy was a major reason why I was able to play this long in the NHL.
Yeah, you know what? I did start thinking about it when I did go to Buffalo, because Muck was there, and then I did the 1 year I did go down to the American League. I play John Tortorella was the coach down there, and I went down. I had Torts in Buffalo, but I went down there and I was a player assistant down there with him, and Torts ended up playing me too much. But I learned a lot. I learned a lot from Torts, like how the coaching part of it and stuff like that. And I ran a bunch of practices and things like that. So I had a good opportunity on that part of it. But you know what? I just it was something that I wanted to give it a shot at, and I was fortunate to do it for a long time. But I think just handling those young defensemen, it was just trying to be calm with those guys. I really have a temper. I don't really like to yell at guys. I don't think you get much out of it. And I think I was more of just kind of let them go out there and play. If they made mistakes, you talk to them a little bit. But I think you got more benefit out of just letting them go back out there and then showing them more stuff the next day. And I will say that I was fortunate I worked with Mac T for a long time. And then I ended up I went to Dallas for a couple of years, but then when I went to Winnipeg, and Paul Maurice was there most of the time. Those guys let me do what I wanted back there. They never really questioned any of the, who I was playing or anything like that. And I never benched a guy unless the head coach told me to, So I had a good relationship. I tried to work with those guys and tried to let them understand that we're all in this together, and I'm not. I want you guys to do better. I just had 17 years in the NHL, and I'd like to see all you guys, be lucky enough to have a long career in the NHL, because it's a pretty good job, and it's a lot of fun playing in this league.
Charlie, you have exactly 36 days. How is your speech? Do you think? How's your speech? I know you haven't started it yet, but how do you feel that's going to go? And are you? Do you have like an invite list of people you asked to come?
I haven't gone through it yet. I'm just I talked to those guys the other day and kind of go through all the stuff. But yeah, you know what? I think it's more of just a thank you of all the people that I played with and who helped me along the way. But it'll be exciting. I'm just I haven't done a lot of speeches and things like that. But although I should be in practice, right? I did one in when was it, in July, for the Alberta Hockey Hall of Fame. I got inducted into that in July. Yeah. So that was that was pretty good. I had my whole family there, and it was a smaller, but it was, it was great. Tim Hunter from the Calgary Flames got inducted, and Women's Edmonton Chimos, and there was a couple other people. So it was pretty cool. So I had a short little speech there. So I gotta tune it up for this one a little bit. But like I said, more thank yous, and should be good.
Awesome stuff, Charlie. Congratulations. We look forward to seeing you.
Okay, I appreciate it. Thanks.
That is Charlie Huddy. Oilers Hall of Fame on October 26th. Let's get to the con man and a Sports Center or Sports 1440 update brought to you by Legacy Heating and Cooling, where the rates never change. No overtime charges, furnace repair, or maintenance. Do it now at legacyheating.ca. Here is Connor Halley. Have yourselves a wonderful night. Enjoy the Jays game.
Few days before he gets going at training camp. The Oilers preseason gets going on Sunday, 4:00 when they take on the Jets. Speaking of those Jays, they're in action, leading the Yankees 1-0. That's in the bottom of the third. Elsewhere, Mets up on the Marlins 3-0 in the fourth. Also in the fourth, the Angels have a 6-1 lead over the Tampa Bay Rays. In the second, scoreless between the Cubbies and the Pirates. And midway through the first, Brewers lead the Cardinals 3-0. One more game to come tonight. Dodgers take on the Tigers. Finals for you. The Astros, they were victorious over the Orioles 2-1. Mariners beat the Athletics 6-3. Rangers beating up on the Red Sox 15-3. And the Nationals doing the same to the White Sox. They win 13-3 in the AJ tonight. Just one game. Sherwood Park traveling to Lloyd, taking on the Bobcats. That one gets going at 7. We are off for the evening. Carius and Douglas back tomorrow morning, 7 a.m. with guest host, former NHLer Laddie Schmid.
This has been a Sports 1440 update.